IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
Later.
Hold on, wait.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
Good to go. IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor. back again, like we never left. And tell a friend. We're excited about today's show in this March for this Women's Month. We got a lot to celebrate, and we got a lot to talk about for sure. But y'all know how to reach us. I am HO Talk Show online. If you're in our listening areas, 101.3 Jams. So, but to kick off today's show, though, we definitely have some heavy hearts and too often. But today, especially with our guests and the ties that we have, to our hometown, I want to kick it over to Razor to set us right and pay some respects.
Yeah, this show here, I want to dedicate to the wonderful legacy of a Miss Brittany Alexander, this lovely young mother from Orange County, where I'm from, gave the ultimate sacrifice to bring life into this world. So me and the guests that's here today for the 12 o'clock hour really wanted to make sure that we pay respects to her. Would you like to say something on Miss Alexander?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Brittany Alexander became a friend in a short period of time, and just a bubbly personality. She was a community activist. She was also an entrepreneur, and of course, first and foremost, a mother, a sister, a daughter, a friend to many. So she will be greatly missed. And they are celebrating her life today. And Absolutely. I just wanted to make sure that we celebrated her life.
The wonderful thing, like when I was a kid, they used to always say, when it rained on your casket, God was opening up heaven for you. And this beautiful angel has snow raining down on hers.
Beautiful. It's
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
So rest easy, baby girl.
Yes.
We're going to do everything. Everybody from Orange County is going to do everything that they possibly can to make sure that you're not forgotten and that your loved ones are taken care of.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hold on, wait.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
Good.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
Yes. And like we always do at this time, Sir Charles Razor, Miss Max, welcome family, another In My Humble Opinion talk show. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. And Razor, there's too many holidays.
Yeah.
Can I start by saying that?
Yes, it is. Especially for those that celebrate.
And we are entrepreneurs. We know that it's about economy.
Absolutely.
It's about business.
Always
But you hear some of our spots, and in all realness, definitely those cancer screenings, are definitely needed. As you just heard about, this being Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, but it's also Women's History Month.
Absolutely.
And we have a woman with us today that is making history.
Yeah.
Not only is she a woman, but she's a Black woman.
She is a living legacy in her own right. I met this young lady via Charles. Charles sent me to her, and she is nothing short of astounding. And after this interview, y'all will understand why I had to have her as the first woman on here for Women's Month.
That's right. That's
Thank
right.
you.
We are talking about
Yeah.
none other than Sweet Vines Farm owned Seidah. Did I say that right?
You said that right.
Right.
Seidah
Yeah.
Armstrong.
Seidah
I gotta give my
Armstrong.
husband some props. Armstrong.
Yeah.
There you go. Mr. Armstrong, what
Yes,
up? Shouts
indeed.
out.
He a smooth gentleman too, Charles.
That's right.
Yeah. He walk in smooth.
Yeah, he an OG.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Seidah Armstrong is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, Virginia's only Black female winemaker,
Yes.
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
is that
that-
also correct when it comes to farm owner as well as winery owner?
So, and that's why I packaged the whole deal because I have to give props and shout outs to, I need to give props and shout outs to, there are wine products out there. They're wonderful wine owners,
Mhm.
5011
Yeah.
wines,
Mhm.
Shoe Crazy
Shoe
wine.
Crazy,
Yeah.
So I want to give them their shout out. They're men too.
Yeah.
This whole wine industry is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But in terms of agritourism, I am the first African American female winemaker with a vineyard
That's right.
and a winery in the state of Virginia. And I actually manage 2 additional vineyards, one in Bedford County and one in King George. But my primary business is on the 122 acres that my husband and I own
You hear that, y'all?
in
I heard her.
Orange County,
Yeah,
Virginia.
yeah.
Yeah, she flexing. She
Yeah,
flexing.
Ain't no 40 acres. 40 acres of music. I got
We're
100.
She
looking
tripled
to
that.
expand.
She
We're
tripled
looking
that.
to expand.
That's
That's
right.
right.
She has
That's
a beautiful place
That's
out
right.
there too.
That's right. Yeah, love it. And so, I've had the privilege, as Reza was saying, to visit this beautiful property and to see how they manage their business and to see the success. So I definitely recommend y'all look up, Sweet Vines VA, because as she's going to tell us, she has a lot of events ongoing and coming back up for us to enjoy. But first, for those that don't know the story, because I will tell y'all, you not only do you get some great wine, but you get a history lesson.
Charles, wait a
And-
minute.
and this history is rich.
Charles, you took the words out of my mouth,
Mhm.
right? Because we have Max and I have a wine tour bus.
Mhm.
We'll take people around, and when you go to these wineries, you're going to the winery.
Mhm.
When you come to Sweet Vines,
Mm.
you get Seidah.
That's
Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Hey.
absolutely. Like, she literally is the vineyard.
Mm.
The vineyard is not her.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So she gives you history, she gives you legacy, she gives you pride,
Mm.
she gives you music, she gives you any and everything that our culture would have if we had a wine.
That's right. Yeah, that's very well said. Very well said.
Now we do have some across America. They're far and in between, but I mean,
Now we worry about you because
Okay.
you here.
No.
That's
But I
it.
just want you to know, like, we could do.
Yeah, I appreciate the love.
with,
Yeah.
your, with your tour bus.
Yeah.
Like, we could do like a tour flight. And let's just.
That's
do
right.
it,
That's right.
Let's do the culture
That's right.
Let's do it. Let's do
because
it.
we're
Yeah.
here.
Change the zip code.
Absolutely,
That's right.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
then come back to Sweet Vines.
And then come back.
That's right. We'll end there.
That's right.
Begin and end.
That's right. Definitely love that. And if you all can't tell, like you can tell how she has a love for, for her culture as well as for her craft.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for those that don't know, go ahead and break it down for them. Let them know the rich history, like how this dates back and how it's in your genetics, it's in your blood to do what you do.
Yeah. So I'm a 3rd generation winemaker, and to be quite honest with you, I started my winemaking in 2006. Because one of my teachers invited me to her home. I was a principal in King George, Virginia. And her husband was an engineer on the Dogger Naval Base, was like, hey, you want to see where I make my wine? I was like, dude makes his own wine? Yeah, let's go see this.
Yeah.
So I went down to the basement, and you know how you feel connected? Like somebody who picks up a hammer and be like, you know what? I'm going to build me a porch.
Yeah.
And they build it, and you be like, dude, you don't know how to build no porch.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah.
I felt a strong connection, not knowing at the time that my great-grandmother and great-great-grandmother
There you go.
were winemakers. And then when it was revealed to me by one of my great aunts, my grandmother was the oldest of 13 siblings. And so one of her sisters was like, look, I hear you're making wine. And I was like, yes, ma'am. She was like, your great-grandmother and great-great-grandmother were winemakers.
Yeah.
And it's like in your genes. And in 2020, one of my aunts died. My great aunt passed away, and come to find out, one of my cousins, distant cousins, is a winemaker in Arkansas. So you talking about genetics and
It's who you
DNA?
are.
Yeah. So
You are.
my husband and I, we actually moved from Bristol, Virginia. We tried to do this in Prince William County on 10 acres. When we moved to that 10 acres, it was a 9,000 square foot home. So like we did a whole reversal, right?
Yeah.
My husband was right away was like, you know what? 20 acres. I mean, 10 acres is not large enough for your dream.
Mm.
And so we were able to scale up a little bit, you know, and that meant like scale back the property in terms of the home that we were living on to pursue this dream. And we were just looking for 20 or 30 acres. And God was like, nah, I got you.
Yeah.
Won't he do it?
You know, because your dream cannot outdo or surpass God's dream for you.
Right.
You know, so
That's
you like in a box. Like, did you
Preach.
hear? You said 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah.
I was like, I just want 20 or 30, Lord. That's all. and God was like, no, I got you. You're gonna get this 122, and then we're gonna start going after more land, and that's another story for another day. But guys, in the next year or two, we're probably gonna double that 122 acres.
What impressed me the most about you is how inclusive you are to everybody else.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not something that you're saying. Like you actually have the receipts.
Oh yeah.
To show. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I had the privilege to come down there and watch you do the flight with the young ladies.
Yes.
And then sit down with my business partner with you and go through as well. Like you're one of one. Well, you know, like honestly, I know you give credit to everybody else, but one thing I can do is I can read people. Yeah, you're one of one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, so what I learned a long time ago, I'm that chick. I'm that inner city chick. I'm that latchkey. I'm that statistic. Anything you say, hey, did this happen to you in the inner city? I probably say, yeah, that happened to me. Yeah. Like, were you robbed? Yeah. Were you almost kidnapped? No, I was kidnapped. They threw me over their shoulder. I mean, it's a story. Yeah. Like for real, you know. So I'm truly blessed. You can't beat God given. Yeah. Right. When I say that latchkey kid, when I became a principal, I even realized that everybody don't choose to take care of their grandkids. My grandmother made a choice because as a principal, I had grandparents saying, you know what? Nah, I got to live my life, put them in the foster care system. And that wasn't me. So full circle, if I can help that one person, there's room at the table for everybody. There's 300 wineries, vineyards, and breweries. Why not help?
Just
why
in
not
Virginia.
extend that? Sir.
Just in Virginia.
Let me say that again.
You taught me that.
There are 300 wineries, breweries, and distilleries. Just in Virginia. We are the fifth fastest growing wine country in the United States of America. Yeah. And I represent 0.0001% in this industry. And so we have to stick together, you know. But the greater part, like I'm successful when all 300 vineyards are successful. I want us to move to like the third, the second, you know, Napa got the first right now. But watch out.
So let me ask you this. So, because I heard you talk about how when you learn later on maybe why you had that intuition to go into winemaking, but do you recall, like, I guess once you came to that fruition, like, do you recall there being a connection, like, with your grandmother before, the way you'd be like, oh yeah, like now I remember kind of thing, or like, what was the connection of relationship?
So the connection and relationship for me was like, I was that city mouse, and since I was being raised by my grandma needed a break every summer. So like when that school bell rang on the last day of school, we didn't have another week or two. We had that evening. She had us on the Greyhound bus, told us not to get off. She had that fried chicken and that tang and that, you know, and we had to get on the bus and go to Memphis to her mother, which was my great grandmother, who was a winemaker. And again, as a child, I didn't know she was a winemaker, but I'll tell you what I did know. I knew that she was a gardener. She was always in her garden. I knew we had okra all the time. I knew that there was watermelon growing. I knew that we could suck the honeysuckle and get, you know, the juice out of the honeysuckle. I knew this chick was the strongest shero I knew, right? She could kill snakes. I mean, she was just constant. She was mowing the lawn. So she was planting seeds of how to work efficiently and effectively, and still came in and made those homemade biscuits, you know, and we had fish and syrup on it and bread with it and bread without it. She was just one of those original sheros. And at 20 years old, I went back to visit her, and I thought she was this strong, tall woman. And I swear, guys, she was probably 4'8".
Right.
You know, but that kind of planted a seed. And so when I actually planted my first vine, it just felt so natural. And I, you know, sometimes God placed you in situations where, you know, you have a sister-in-law, and I have one. Krista and Christy, shout out to the twins. They actually grew up on the farm. in Georgia. So when I knew that I was going to do this, like my next step was to visit their family in Georgia. So we actually drove to their farm and we did it. You
That's
know,
right.
we did it. So, you know, there are people around you God is strategically placing so you can do your thing. And even like when I was a principal, I don't think I even said that. You know, I always tell people that the kids drove me to drinking. I don't really drink. However, probably their parents. But as a principal, I think even strategically, God was preparing me to, okay, if you could handle multi-million dollars in the school and all these personalities, girl, you can get out there in those vines and you can handle this industry and you can make it what you want to make it. And so we are growing. You know, our goal is to have tiny houses on the property.
That's right.
You know, we have entertainment going on, but at the core of everything is I am a winemaker. Now, no, my trajectory is not the same as these award-winning wines right now, but I guarantee in 5 years I'm gonna win an award. No doubt about it. I feel that.
We're gonna be there.
I believe that. I'm
like,
claiming that.
Like Charles said, we're gonna be there. Now, let's shift gears for a second.
Okay.
Right? You are always an educator, even if you might not be clocking in as one, right? Because I've been around you.
Okay.
So you're always teaching, right? That's you. Let me ask you this. What's, in your opinion, are we missing in our society that's leading us down the road that we're at right now?
I think foundational blocks at home. We're so dependent on the schools to raise our kids that we miss that you have your kids to raise them yourself. Like the school is supplemental. It's a supplemental resource that's a privilege in America. I'm telling you. We need to get back to the basics. Finances need to be taught at home. And what better time than now? Like you can Google everything you want to know. So if you didn't know it, you know, like I find myself with this new math, that's what they call it, new math. Even the former principal, I'm like, I have a middle school at home, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Let me look on Google before I tell you how to do the Pythagorean theorem the new way. You know, so
thank you. I don't feel as bad.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. It's rough out here for us parents. But I think, you know, foundational blocks start at home, and we really need to move back to the home teaching method. Now, I'm not saying homeschool, although that's not a bad idea, and I think about it a lot sometimes. However, I'm just saying, like, what does spiritual education look like in the household? What does financial education what about fitness and wellness in the household, you know, to combat obesity and other things like that? Just, we need to start at home. Like, what does a good husband and wife relationship look like in the household? Kids, they, you know, they're trying to mimic us. They're looking. We don't think they hear us sometimes. They see everything.
They do.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Since you're going down this rabbit hole, let me go ahead and go.
Come on. Come on.
Because so many women are forced to run the households nowadays, right? And a lot of these children raising children aren't equipped to even have had that child, in Razor's opinion.
Right.
But now that the child is here and the parent doesn't have the knowledge or the education to really add to that child's life, honestly, what recommendation would you give a parent who doesn't want to feel like they're ill-equipped to raise their child, but also look for guidance outside of the house and still be comfortable with it, that people aren't looking at them as like, you ain't even raising your kids, you got the government raising your kids?
Right. So the first thing I'm gonna say is you make a choice to have that child, right? And there are mentorship programs. I look at my own sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We just gotta get So we have an initiative right now, right? And there are so many organizations willing to, well, they are extending olive branches out to the community. Hey, let your kids come and learn STEM with us. Let your kids come and learn about financial responsibility. Again, I told you I was that latchkey growing up. My grandmother was a single parent for the second time, you know. So what I'm saying is, and I know my grandmother had my mother and one of my aunts before 18 years old. So she was a single mother doing it on her own, but she did pull resources from her her village, right? And so my point is that you have to seek out the resources and the knowledge. Not that I'm a huge basketball fan or anything like that, but I heard a story about LeBron James and his mom, and the difference between like these different basketball players and the difference between success or not. Mom say, you know what, I'm gonna turn this kid over to this male. If it's a male child, you have to do it. Don't be selfish. Oh, don't treat my son like this. There is value and discipline,
right?
And I just think that we have to look at the village when we have a baby at 16, 17, 18, 19, I'm gonna say 21, 22, 23, 24 without a husband. What does that look like? And that husband or that boyfriend, they need to be responsible too. You chose to bring this life in the world, and that's our most valuable commodity. That life, So what does that look like? You have to pull on the resources in the community to build the foundation of that child, the spirit, the growth. Call on the church. Go to the church. Now, I'm gonna say that. Be present. Be present in the church. Know whose house your child is going to.
Right.
And show your face at the school. Some principals won't like me saying that. Please be present. Don't drop them off once they get to middle school and say, I've done my job. No, middle school, you need to be in their face. What's on that phone? Get rid of the TikToks, like let's have some family time. Let's sit at the table and eat. That's one thing we don't do anymore as a family. We don't sit down at that table and push away that technology. So
And family, we are joined by Seidah Armstrong, owner, winemaker of Sweet Vines Farm. And as you can tell, she's very well versed, very well enriched.
She's sharp, man. She's sharp.
So like that's why we can take this conversation so many ways. I know y'all probably thought y'all were just gonna learn about winemaking, but no, there's so much more to this woman. And so, like to that point, like for some reason we follow extremes like too much. It's
do it.
Yeah, it's like we go, like we get a little something, maybe a luxury, and we go over, like we overindulge.
We do.
And so when I look at you and all of your success, but I still hear that balance, I still hear that core. I feel like that's what's missing now, and I want to know, like, how do you maintain it? Because the parenting, when it comes to to nurturing our next generation, is one thing, but the crux of, I think, all three of us is whether we wanted to go or not, whether we the church, or whether we wanted to hear about God or not, we had to do it. Right. And when we got older, like the verse says, train up a child in the way he should go. And you won't depart. Now we stray, but we won't depart from it.
Right. So I'm gonna say this to you. I didn't go to church today, but I had devotion. Jada went to church today.
Yeah, got you.
With my husband.
Yeah.
So it's still not a choice in the household. But
how do you balance it, like with all this success? Because you see us so many times say, "I'm making this money now. I ain't got time to to do this and that," because that's what we did before we had money. Before we had this technology.
There's none of this without God, without my spirituality. So at the end of the day, I feel like life happens because of God.
That's right.
How I move, my next steps, my next decision is because of the God I serve, so that's first and foremost in my household. Now decisions are made because of that. I think it was the owner, Mary Kay Cosmetics, who said, God first, family second, career third. I'm like, God first, family second, and then you have your values, right? You're fulfilled. Now there is a career, but I'm learning that, like, what I made last year, it was way less. I'm just gonna say that than I made as an educational consultant when I left my principalship. But guess what? I had God, I had my family, I had my values, and I was fulfilled.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
Now let me ask you this, Gal, based off of what Charles had said and what you alluded to. I feel because some of our community don't really see where they can cement themselves in their own legacy, that they have turned away from religion as we knew it as kids, or our grandparents knew it as kids. Because you hear more of our community hollering about, why would you follow that white man's God? So in turn, I wanted to. I'm
ready for this one.
I know you are, but I in turn, how can I prosper on this world when I really don't believe in the God that I was trained up to believe in?
Right.
Because I'm blaming on man. I'm putting man over top of God and saying I'm not going to follow that God because of man.
But why are we following man? But that's another
Yeah.
story for another day. What I'm going to say is
Okay.
Kirk Franklin just came out with something on Instagram. He
Mhm.
was breaking down the origins of religion and Christianity. And he was like, although as African American, we think, we're following the white man's religion. No. And he is absolutely right. I actually had the opportunity to visit Egypt twice.
Absolutely.
And when
Likewise.
you go to the Orthodox Church, like the origins of religion, and know that this is where Jesus was like thousands of years ago. I mean, this is not the let's say, for all intended purposes, in England, King James, he found his version and said, okay, I'm going to bring this back. I'm glad he found it. I'm glad he found Christianity, and he spread it because it was already there. He just kind of spread the word, and it spread to us. And there are definitely references in around the world that Christianity was already in Africa.
That's right.
That was the symbol of the fish. And again, when you start doing your pilgrimage and you move outside of the box of America and see that, it's not all about me. It's not all about America. Christianity is worldwide. God exists. I don't care if you call him Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah. God is God. And at the end of the day, there is Christianity. And at the end of the day, let's say if you're not a Christian, but you have spirituality, you need to have some type of mindset rooted in spirituality. You really do.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Did you know she was this ready?
Yeah. Dude, no, you don't understand. I was in her presence. Like, it's a difference between going to her beautiful establishment and enjoying the atmosphere, as opposed to walking and being in her presence, a foot from her, and her explaining how she got to where she is, what she's doing, what she is, asking any question that you have, right? And her having the answer right on the tip of her tongue, because that's who she really is. She hasn't scripted out something that she's going to read off, whether it fits what you're talking about or not. That's not who you get. So yes, I was in her presence. I knew she was ready. So when you said, man, who should we have? I said, oh, shoot, Sweet Vine. I didn't mention nobody else. Nope, this who we need right here.
Love it. So Seidah, if you could stick with us to a quick break, and when we come back, let's get back to the farm and let the folks know about some of your plans as well as those events you got coming up.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm HO Family. We'll be right back with Sweet Vine's farm and winery owned Seidah Armstrong.
Great job. Yeah, you're doing just fine.
Okay.
I am HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
I am HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
I am HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion, only on
I am HO Talk Show, Sir Charles Razor. We are joined by Seidah Armstrong, Virginia's only Black female farm and winemaker owner.
One of one. I told you.
Owner. I mean, it's just so
But
many
she humble too, though. See, we're gonna make her cry up in here today.
and you know what too, and like with the spirit that she has, like, and with the education background, I got a feeling you're gonna start like birthing more winemakers, and I mean that figuratively.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we're gonna have, you know, those coming to you saying like this is where it started, and then look where we went. Because you mentioned Napa Valley. You know, and that's actually a good question for you. Like, what do you think, you know, is the difference? Like, what is Virginia missing to why? Because a lot of people worldwide still see Napa Valley, California as having like the best ground and whatnot. And I'm not technical, you want to get into that. Like, but when you talk about Virginia's gonna grow, like what is it that you're seeing?
We're growing. Like
right.
It's not, you know, to become the fifth in such a short amount of time. So I actually visited 53rd Winery not too long ago, and they're called 53rd Winery because they were the 53rd vineyard winery to open in 1999. So that just shows you the growth, you know. So since, let's say, I think like the late 70s, we had Barbersville right here in Charlottesville opening, you had Ingleside in like the Colonial Beach area opening, and that was like late 70s, you know. So in the span of 40 to 50 years, we're at 300 now. So we're doing well. And our Virginia red clay, we have the mountains. We have Blue Ridge Mountains. So we can grow a variety of French grapes. And that is leading to our great success. And we are like performing on a national, international stage, and placing with our wines across the country
let me ask you this.
And globally.
That's right.
Let me ask you this. Because tobacco was so heavily marketed here, right? Is as we get away from tobacco, right? As we know that it's killing us and people are going away from it, the soil that the tobacco was grown on, is it conducive to grapes?
So I'm not going to speak on that because I can't tell you if it is or not, because my soil was not a tobacco soil. What I will say is that the winery, the alcohol and beverage industry has really been a tourniquet for that industry that once existed, because the tobacco industry was huge in Virginia,
right?
And we kind of took over the market, and it's a $1 billion industry here in Virginia. You know,
no.
I just want a fraction of that. That's all. But if I can give just a shout out, because the first known African American who actually owned a winery was John June Lewis Sr., and it was in Clarksville, Virginia. And this was like way back in the day, you know. So look him up. Again, John June Lewis Sr., you have to give him credit. We have to give our ancestors credit.
Absolutely.
So that's why you say I'm humble, but I just like, there probably wasn't a face out there, but we know we had our ancestors out there. You know, I look at the Carter firm in
next door,
Orange County. You know, so the Carter firm in Unionville, Virginia, who established a commercial farm in 1910. You know, you have Edna Lewis. So, you know, we have all this history. Our ancestors, they kind of paved the way. And I'm just taking it to the next level. That's all.
And speaking of Ms. Edna Lewis too, and it's Women's History Month as well. She just turned 99.
Yes.
Still,
that's a blessing.
Still well. And y'all made me think of Vanguard Farm over in Gordonsville as well.
Yes.
You know, like doing pretty big.
Yes.
Raynard, I believe is his name. And you know, while we're talking about it, shouts out to the whole George Washington Carver School too.
Absolutely.
You know, folks over there, like they're still teaching agriculture, you know, to Black students, to every student, but, you know, knowing that there's Black farmers out there still doing that. Because to your point too, like, I also think about like Uncle Nearest, you know, out in Tennessee, who was, you know, like they said, like he was that Jim Beam, right?
That's right.
Jim Beam?
Yeah.
You know, or was it Jack Daniels? So Jim Beam or Jack Daniels? Was one of them.
Jack Daniels.
I think it was Jack Daniels. You know, so the point is that like a lot of times we've had, you know, like we've done the work, you know, as far as our people, and we didn't always get credit for it. And then we were barred from.
And that's from the ship.
Right. And we were barred from doing business. So that's one reason why it's so beautiful, and why I say that I think that she's gonna spawn so many more because of her passion, and because of your energy and your wherewithal, to where people who are interested and people who have, like you said, people who have the talent, they may have a gift in them, but just need that moment, for it to come out, for it to get stirred up. And I also think about Virginia and how it's a craft beer market as well. So have you ever looked into breweries, distillery kind of thing? And does that interest you?
Beer has never interested me, but I want to give a shout out to 1865 Brewery in Hampton. It's Black owned.
Okay.
And what I want to say about what you just said is so I feel like your platform is what you make it. Mm-hmm. And what I've been hearing since we've been open is, ooh, how did you get that land? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like how you buy a house. You want 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. You say, look, I'm looking for 20 acres or more. Mm-hmm. And then you just start looking. And you don't have to have a big house right away. My grandma used to have a saying, if it's on your ass, it's not an asset. I know it's Sunday. Yeah. That's all good because you can't wear your money. So we have a habit as a culture of wearing your money. My husband's probably saying right now, she's going to try to slide that in. Yeah. I did. So, but it's so important to teach that because you have to save. Mm-hmm. We were talking at the beginning of the hour of values, right? And that single parent. Let's talk about what happened with COVID when grocery stores closed down and people didn't know how to eat. Yes. Right? So grow your own food. Yeah. If you even in the urban community, is it Skinny Boy Danny or something like that? He has his own show now in Richmond, but whatever it is, grow your own food because you owe it to yourself. On that farm, okra, corn, cucumbers, eggplant, and you can make it taste good.
Well, let me ask y'all this. Okay. Right. If we know as a community, we're at the bottom, so to speak, of the totem pole, but farming is something that doesn't take a lot of land. You can build them up from the ground, the raised bed. Yeah, enough to feed you and your family. Mm-hmm. Why have we went so far away from something that we brought to America in the first place?
Well, I think part of it is that, I don't want to be out on the farm. I feel like that's going backwards. But right now, people don't even want jobs, so they don't want to do anything else. McDonald's up to $20 an hour. And I got family members. I know. And people be like, I don't want to work at McDonald's. Hell, I work at McDonald's for $20 an hour, So, and I'm being funny about it, but we have a serious problem. And again, that's not taught at school. We have to get back to, there are priorities in life, and you can dream about it or you can be about it. Mm-hmm. And we really have to have some hard conversations with our family members, and accountability to self as well. If you weigh 400 pounds, and I struggle with weight myself, I call myself that buxom chick. But 44 pounds ago, my knees felt it. Yeah. And the doctor said, when you lose that 20 pounds, you're not going to feel it on your knees anymore. Mm-hmm. And when I lost that 44 pounds, I was like, I think I could be a track runner again. Yeah. Maybe not, but You have to. So we give ourselves false hope because we want to feel good. Right. But if you want to live longer, if you want to grow, you have to change your own mindset, right? Even the people you hang around. It's true.
Right. Oh, saying that, let me ask you this. Okay. Yeah, I stop us digging. Okay. Women, our sisters, are making phenomenal moves in this world right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Hey, you gotta save some of this for the rest of the show.
She gonna be with us for a while. I'm getting ready to crank up here, Sir Charles. But who is really in control of the Black plight right now?
The Black plight.
Yeah, because honestly, women have to be talking amongst themselves, especially when y'all are graduating with doctor degrees and starting businesses and the first of the, a whole lot of Madam C.J. Walkers running around here now, right? Yeah. So our brothers, not everybody's a Sir Charles, not everybody's an A.A. Ron, a Razor. Like, we have had opportunities that a lot of people weren't privy to. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to take advantage of them the best that we know how. Mm-hmm. But as a whole, the Black man is the minority in the Black plight of success, in my opinion.
Right.
So where are we at right now? Should the men tell the women that y'all are doing too much, y'all got to let us up front, or do women feel like we need to go along with the ride and just support y'all?
I don't think it's a ride of support. I think so
you know they counting on you now. Sisters want you to say something.
They can count on me, but you know I've been with my husband for 21 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be the first to say it's hard to be submissive, right? But I feel like for the most part, I'm a submissive wife.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard struggling along as a single female and putting your super cape on. And I know a lot of she-rolls out there, but I know a lot of she-rolls with husband, and they allow the man to lead, you know, but at the same time, that man respects the wife, and where it needs to be, the woman leads too. If you are firm in your manhood and your woman makes more money than you, the marriage works, because you know that woman married you for you. She married you because of what you represent. She married you because of your values. And
you don't think some of them married because they can control the man?
Because they control.
Yeah, they got more than him. So you know he got to listen. He ain't got a library card. He barely got a license. Like, come on now, you ain't gonna get away from me like that.
Now, if somebody married for that,
yeah.
But I had a student a long time ago say, "You get what you get, and you don't put your fit." Right?
Yeah.
If you marry for that,
yeah,
you know, then you know you get what you get. However, I think, and I hate to throw his name out there, but for somebody who grew up in a single parent household, I wanted that Heathcliff, Huxtable, and Claire marriage. You know, I was looking for that. I'll be the first to say, because I'm transparent.
Yeah.
I had daddy issues. Now my daddy's in my life, but he wasn't the one who raised me. You know, so I was like, okay, what should a man and wife look like? And I knew what I wanted, and so that kind of shaped where I was going after in terms of success. And I'm glad those type of images was out there, because like even Good Times, you know. There was a husband and a wife, and they were working.
They definitely stuck together.
Yeah, they stuck.
I mean, if you don't leave
through the
James,
hard time.
If you don't leave James, you ain't leaving.
That's funny. That's funny.
You know, I think it comes down to there are more women. So like if we go systemically and we go, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but you know, I have a couple of single friends. And it's hard for them to find relationships because like they're on these social media apps that say, oh, datehimgirl.com or whatever it is, right? And they go and they date them. And of course, a lot of times it's about the physical, right? And then they're moving on. However, there are quality men out there and there are quality women out there, right? And it's kind of like men, I'm going to just say it. They need to grow up.
Okay.
They need to grow up, you know? And maybe it's at 32, 36. Maybe we shouldn't even talk to them before 36, you know?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you know, but I feel like it still goes back to the home foundation, right? Like it goes back to get the male as a young man, a mentor, get the young lady a mentor as well, and then bring them up.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into that. 'Cause look, I might as well just throw my papers out, throw my agenda out, because Razor just going every which way.
I know.
People trying to follow the conversation.
Hey,
Right?
look,
We're gonna get back to winemaking, guys.
We are gonna get back.
I'm gonna take over the show. I want to give a shout out to the wine industry, because there's people in the wine industry. I know we got to go to a commercial, but there are people in the wine industry that I could not be last year without them. Like Tasha Durrett, you know, these are organizations like she owns Black Women Who Wine. And these are like people who are educating sisters on how to drink wine and to have social groups. There's another one, Sips DMV. She's another one who does something similar, where they take a group of women, and that's Siobhan Thomas, and they go to different places. You know, I mean, we are like turning this industry on its head because of who we are. We put flavor, you know.
That's right.
And talking about flavor, you know, we don't say flavor and wine taste. We say notes. What notes are you tasting? What are you experiencing? Right? It's a whole mood, and you know how I begin. wine tasting is like love making, but I'm going to keep it because I know I got probably kids on the show. But come see me and I'll tell you all about it.
Yes, she will.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, she will.
And family, y'all stay tuned because Saida said she's gonna hang out with us a little bit more. So, and don't worry, she's still gonna plug those events she has coming up. And
Like
yeah, so much.
Go at the Vineyard.
Hey,
April
Seville,
29th.
Seville, I'm a good go.
Yeah.
Don't
Put
threaten.
your one leg up.
Hey, don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
That's right.
it's Sir Charles Razor. So much more talk. So much going on in the community to talk about. Still celebrating women, all that good stuff with Sadie Armstrong of Sweet Vines Farm and Winery. Stay tuned. Catch y'all next hour.
All right.
Yeah.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, We want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
Here we go, family.
I want to talk about Mike Parker. This country.
Hold on, wait.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
I to the Ism, H to the Izzo talk show. Sir Charles Razor in the booth in the building with Seidah Armstrong. Tell a friend. We only a third of the way through.
Yeah.
Razor, we got so much more to show. This lovely lady, Seidah Armstrong, owner, winemaker, at Sweet Vines Farm, Virginia's only Black female to have such a feat in her resume. Don't get it twisted. We gonna boast for her, Razor.
Yes, right.
Since she don't want to brag and
There'll never
we
be
gonna
another first.
Hey, but but before we go, Razor's not gonna have to talk to you about being some investors, like some venture capitalists, because I heard you say you're gonna grow. So
we got a couple dollars to rub together. We ain't broke no more.
But to kick us
I'll
off,
sell y'all some land. How about that?
And we will buy it.
For sure. Hey, but to kick us off with this hour too, speaking of the winery and the farm, it's so multifaceted.
Yes.
So tell us about some of the ways that you used it, some of your plans for using it, as well as events coming up.
Yeah. Awesome. I kind of snuck it in there at the first of the hour, but we do have quite a few. We have a 100 proof brand from the Charlottesville own.
That's right.
They are going to be performing. They're headlining our Go-Go at the Vineyard April 29th.
Yeah.
Tickets on sale now on Simple Tix. Now I want to give a shout out to my Instagram page, Sweet Vines with an S, VA. Sweet Vines VA. You can find all of our events on Instagram, Sweet Vines VA, or on Facebook. Type in Sweet Vines Farm Winery. But we do have Go-Go at the Vineyard, 100 proof band, April 29th. Get your tickets. Guys, when I say that this is going to sell out, we've been selling tickets since January, and our people are coming through. Everybody likes Go-Go. We just had Chuck Brown on. Backyard barbecue.
Right.
So we also have, I have a organization called Elevate Your Glow. And so I try to put on series to assist women and just how in their thought process of how they can make additional revenue or start a new business line or something like that. So I have on March 25th, a candle, it's a wax and wine. And that's with the Randall Candle Company. It's a husband and wife owned candle company. And they'll be there March 25th. And, so if you want to come learn about wine, about candle and have a glass of wine, candle making, come make your own candle on March 25th. We also have,
country.
Mike Parker, guys. I don't know if you guys remember him last year. African-American brother, country singer from Warrenton, Virginia, by the way, VA in the house. Mike Parker is going to headline our, he's actually going to put on a show on May 20th. Look it up. Tickets are on sale now. And when I say those tickets are going faster than my Go-Go at the Vineyard, because it's going to probably be a more diverse crowd, which, money's green. Love all, love all my people, love all, all genres of music as well. So come and support Mike Parker. He was top 10 finalist on American Idol, and he is a country singer. So please come support him. And then we have on July 15th, that's the huge one. July 15th, we have our first annual jazz festival. I'm actually co-sponsoring this with Brock Cobb, saxophonist Brock Cobb. Right now we have 6 different acts. It's from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. So it's all day. And people who've been to my functions, they know, like when you come to the events, bring your lawn chairs, bring your 10 by 10 tents. I do have security out there, not that we need it, but just to protect some of the areas where we don't want people to go. We have wine and beer on the property on those event days. Like we've added beer to our event venues for the 2023 season. So there will be a beer garden for our beer drinkers. Nothing heavier than beer and wine though, people. And you can't bring your own bottles. Not that type of party, because I am a legal commercial run business. And sometimes you just got to remind your people that. I can't bring my Hennessy in. No, please don't bring your Hennessy to my farm. Thank you.
You know, yeah. I mean, I gotta imagine people were ready to buy more tickets right after last year's Go-Go.
Oh,
I heard you say since January. I know tickets weren't on sale, but I know it was a huge success.
Yeah. It's you know, I love that we can provide this type of venue. We are growing in terms of what we're offering. My goal is to be that rustic place that you can go to that's 9 minutes away from Lake Anna, right? So we have a plethora of vineyards and entertainment in the Orange County. Don't sleep on Orange County. Don't sleep on Charlottesville. Y'all come join us. We have a lot to offer, but we're going to add tiny houses. So you can actually stay on the property. We hope to break ground and have our first tiny house up no later than September. And maybe we'll have 2 by then. We actually broke ground and we have a road leading right to the pond now. It's a fully stocked pond. So when you do come stay on the grounds, you can actually fish on the property. I have a tour bus as well. And people who know me in terms of vendors, if you are vendors, reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook and say, hey, I'm looking to be a vendor. Vendors can set up at my events for free. Now, my events, because I do have private events in which other organizations actually close us down. They pay us to use the facility because 122 acres is a lot. And so we allow that as well. But if you are a vendor at one of my events, so the Go at the Vineyard, the Jazz, and whatever, Mike Parker's May 20th, you can set up for free. You got to bring your own tent, bring your own, chairs, but you can set up for free. I just need to know, and I need you to actually, the event that you're going to, just post that flyer on your social media. It's just that simple. I've been a vendor. I've sold jewelry. See, you don't know this about me. I've sold jewelry boxes. Look, I was an assistant principal with my own house cleaning business, so I'm a hustler from Chicago.
Get it.
So,
you met your match, Razor. Like Razor usually out here talking about his hustles, but I think she outdoing you.
Yeah, she is. I'm gonna say, I ain't remember that she done surpassed me. I'm coming though. I'm on the way.
Look, we can't make excuse for ourselves. We got to do it. We got to do it. When you are responsible for others, you have to do what you have to do to make it work.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
That's right. Loving it. So in regards to folks reaching out to you, like to get involved with some of that growth that you mentioned, because it does sound like there are some investment opportunities to help with the growth, like whether that sounds like buying in or whatever the case may be.
So let me just clarify. We are a family-owned farm winery. So and what I do offer is you can become a lifetime member at Sweet Vine. So, and we have 100 slots for that. And so a lifetime, we have a regular annual membership, which is $100 a year. And then a lifetime membership means that you can come, you can drink for free every time you come for the low price of $1,000. Now, and I say that because you are a lifetime member, you get a plaque we have an ancestors garden where we pay homage to my grandmothers, but the ancestors, in general, because Unionville was one of the first places after slavery that allowed blacks to buy land, so like when you come there, people are like, oh my gosh, where are we? You're in a safe space. Unionville's that place.
I like that.
Okay.
Right.
We're there. We're doing things. There are a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people. I always talk about Sam and Sam Party Rental. I met them. They right up the street on Tower Road. They got the bounce houses going on. And I mean, it's just our people who are business minded, who are entrepreneurs, but that whole block, whether it's black or white, everybody owns business. Like every other house is a business owner, and that works there, right? So in terms of investment, you invest by becoming a member, but a lifetime member, you get all the perks that goes with that. We honor those members, whether it's the $100 member or that lifetime membership. And that's how you invest right now. There might be something later on, because I'm always working. It's always working up there. But for now, that's what we're working on. But stay tuned, because you just never know. You just never know what's going on. But I want to invest in other businesses, right? So if you have an idea and you want to come, like let's say you want to do a live show or you want to do something special on our property, I'm willing to work with you. I'm working with a young lady out of Dumfries, Virginia right now. She has a paint and sip place.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I can't even think of it, but it's called 14. Oh my gosh, I can't think. I'll think of it later on. But anyway, this young lady, Ashley, Ashley is phenomenal, you know, but we partner together, whether I'm going there and pouring wine or whether she's coming to my spot and doing a paint and sip on the property. It's just I want this to be a platform where everybody can grow. You know, I'm still selling my wine.
That's right.
You know, my wine is still the primary reason that I'm here, but why not open it up for businesses to grow and network? It's about the networking. That's the key thing right there. Yeah.
That is awesome. That's awesome. So so before we take another quick break, for those who may not know, go ahead and plug that website again so folks know how to reach you to find out more about these events and to register.
Okay, so my website is www.thevines.farm. That's important. We are a farm, not a .com, .farm. And on Instagram is Sweet Vines, SWEET VINES VA. That's the educator.
Yep.
So we're Sweet Vines VA on Instagram, and you can catch me on Facebook just by typing in Sweet Vines Farm Winery. And you know, just reach out, just shoot me a message and just say, hey, I'm interested. And like I said, all you need to do from there is just take my flyer and actually put it on your social media page, bring your own tables, bring your own chairs, bring a tent, and just come have a good time. Now, let me just tell you, because I gotta be clear, you can come with one other person. Don't bring your whole family trying to come for free. I mean, let's just keep it real. Not that anybody has taken advantage of that, but you just got to say stuff up front, because people had their old 20 members coming for free, talking about they helping out with the vendor. Anyway, so let me just say this. It's 514 Wine and Paint Bar in Dumfries. Don't do that, because you know I'm right. And I also want to give out a shout out to Zippy's Barbecue and Carrie Soul Food, because they've been with me from the beginning as well. So I just want to shout everybody out. I'm through shouting, I promise.
That's what's up. Well, you know, sit at the table and order up coming there.
That's
too,
right.
Like Charles said, sometimes you got to plug yourself up in there.
Not only is seat at the table coming, but we are going to actually partner together to do a culinary wine pairing experience. And what I would like for us to do is we do a Black vineyard experience where we actually travel to Seven Springs Vineyards in North Carolina, which is about 2 hours and 15 minutes away from me. And then we start off there. And then we come back after their tasting to my spot, and we do that culinary pairing experience with your organization.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, chef.
I wasn't going to say that yet. You know,
but I'm going to put it out there because, you know. Now, and don't think you're going to get that for $50 a person.
Nope.
Call us. Yeah. Because it's definitely an extraordinary experience. And I mean, it's being done, so we need to do it too. You looking for a unique birthday, you celebrating your 40th or 50th, you celebrating your anniversary, and you want to do something special and different. We have special and different for you. Absolutely.
That's right. You are listening to the sounds of none other than Sadie Armstrong.
One of one.
That's right. On IMHO Talk Show. And we're only about halfway through. Tell a friend. And, you know, I'm not even going to tell you what we're going to talk about when we come back from break.
It's going
to be like a little cliffhanger because, you know, because she has the education background, a lot going on with us in Charlottesville right now that I'm sure she could chime in on, as well as continuing to pay homage, you know, to all the great women who have made us who we are and continue to be shining lights and backbones, and so on and so forth. So, hey, we're going to take this quick break. IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles Razor. Be right back, y'all.
All right.
Yeah, fun.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
That's right. Y'all heard what the man said. You're listening to In My Humble Opinion. IMHO Talk Show, y'all. Yeah. And so, as y'all can tell, our guest today, you
she ready.
Yeah, and you couldn't tell by the
She
promo
ready.
Razor. You cannot tell on how well versed she is and all the experiences. But I'm so glad that she wanted to hang out with us today. And Razor, like, I can't think of too many people better to celebrate Women's History Month than Seidah.
Yep, none at all.
Yeah, and so you know, shout out to the Seville Inclusive Media Project, Vinegar Hill, Charlottesville Tomorrow. You know, our partners in inclusive media. Because with your education background, Seidah, wanted to definitely dig into a couple of topics here that we're dealing with locally. Because we have a saying here too, taking Seville to the world, bringing the world to Seville. And you know, and we can include Orange and Nuggets, just like you said. Come out.
Wait a minute. You talking like you doing us a favor? I'm from Orange County. What you talking about?
That's right.
I just realized I was being offended.
And let me just say, the original OC.
That's right.
Right? Because
California wasn't first.
That's
That was
right.
us.
The original OC is right here.
Jersey
and
wasn't first.
Since we're talking about education, if you look on an old map, like 1700, 1600, the original OC spanned across to Chicago.
It was the biggest county across it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh yeah.
Dropping bombs.
That's fire right there. For your knowledge. No one means like going to college. No one
We
means
know
like going to
that.
college.
People from Orange County, we know that.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Well, since we're doing all these shout outs too, shout out to the March babies. Am I right, Seidah? And you know, y'all can thank us now for this weather, because you never know what you get in March. And you know, I'm kind of like the people born in March. Like we're so well versed, you never know what you're gonna get.
Right. That's right.
And so this
I call it confused. You don't know if it's summer, you don't know if it's spring.
Complicated.
You don't know if it's winter. That's right. Yes,
Complex.
ma'am.
It's very complex. That's right. You know, I just found out that Seidah celebrated her birthday a day after mine, and you know,
That's right. In
I mean,
Vegas
like-
with my girlfriend. Shout out to the girlfriends.
that's right. Got to see Usher.
Got to see Usher. USHER. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's right. All right. Let me get sophisticated again.
Okay.
All right.
Not really, but
I got ready to say, are you sure? You sure about that?
But no. So shouts out to our folks over at Seville Tomorrow again. You know,
Yes.
a couple of things they reported on is going on in the city. One headline is now that City Schools is the sole owner of the local technical high school, K-Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Officials must figure out how to pay the price tag. Also, note that another article is Charlottesville City Schools becomes the third district in Virginia to pass collective bargaining, which means teachers and other city school workers will soon negotiate contracts. So the first one, Razor. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But the first one though, Seidah, Razor and I are definitely big proponents when it comes to the trades, when it comes to like technical training. I think Razor and I agree that that was one of the workforce downfalls. What we say was like around late 90s of when the mindset seems to start pushing everybody to college and universities, where it almost felt like but trade schools and trades in schools started being defunded.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had just like a generation of, loss, because these are folks who very well could have got contracted, could have got licenses to do something that they were gifted to do. Now it looks like they're just rolling back around. And we also see that by the city schools' investment in it. So I'm curious your path. We didn't really talk about your path.
No, we didn't.
But you are educators. So that means you got to have some papers. So, like, what's your take, being a successful businesswoman as well, when it comes to weighing, and maybe what you told your own family, weighing that education versus getting out there and working?
Right. So it's kind of like I paid you for that question, or we pre-did this, because after my stint as a middle school principal in King George and then in Falls Church, what I did is I actually traveled the country as a contractor, and basically I taught STEM education.
Mm-hmm.
So not
STEM
only
stands for what?
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
Mm-hmm.
Some people call it STREAM: science, technology, reading, engineering, the arts, and math.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you call it, it was missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I spent time across the United States, was able to actually go back to Chicago and do some work in schools in Chicago. And it is so important to have options and choices. But more important than that, we need to build schools that move away from BBL.
Mm-hmm.
You know what BBL is?
Mm-hmm.
Butt-based learning.
Basically,
when you just sit on your butt all day, right? So
yeah.
So what we had at Votech back in the day, and I think I'm probably older than you, but what we had back in Votech back in the day is like it was hands-on, right? Like you learn how to build, you learn how to fix cars, you learn how to change a tire, and well, even like this is STEM, right? Being in this studio and learning about sound, and we were working on the mics earlier, right? So this is all STEM right here. We have to do hands-on engaging. We have to promote opportunities in schools where students learn through doing, through action, and not just sitting down. Like you can teach math in practical, applicable ways, right? You can teach reading the same way. And while we're talking about, let's call students what we want them to be. If they're in math class, let's call them mathematicians and say, okay, today we're serving up weapons of math instruction. We need to change the trajectory of not only the student, but our expectation for our teachers. We need them to step up to the plate and own their craft as well. Like, it's not just providing education in isolation. It's what does this mean? How is this applicable to my future, to what I want to do? So yes, I'm all about STEM, STEAM, STREAM, whatever you want to call it.
Can I say something about that?
Of course.
When it comes to like, when you were talking, you know how you have thoughts that you try to keep to yourself. But I feel that a large problem when it comes to our teachers is that some of these teachers that wanted to be teachers didn't want to teach all races. So the disconnect comes in, because if I'm from Iowa and I never really understand the colored plight, then all I'm left to is my devices of social media and what movies tell me that you are.
Right.
So I hate the fact that anytime that a teacher has an issue with a child of color, they want to send them to the counselor. They recommend medication. They recommend them going into like getting in trouble, sitting in the principal's office, like all these other things, right? Like that is the place for you. And then I've even had it to where with my own children, I have to say like, no. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that this is the route that you're going to go with my child.
Right.
I have a serious problem with it, because then our children adapt to, okay, if I did something wrong, I get sent away.
Right.
You
So what I'm going to say to you is this. I acknowledge what you're saying, and I think there's some truth in that. But I grew up in inner city Chicago, where I really didn't have a lot of white teachers. I had black teachers, and we were still sent to the office for discipline and stuff like that. And then I started teaching in DC. I taught in DC when it was still Chocolate City, and it was all black teachers, right? So, and those 10%, we're talking about 10% of the kids. Like just my experience as a middle school principal, it's 10% of that population. So what do you do, right?
You mean they get in trouble?
They get in trouble.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that gets
Okay.
in trouble. It's usually 10%. Like we have statistics and data. So what do? Do you keep that kid in the classroom if it's a great disruption, or what's your plan B? So I think it's beyond like a black and white thing. It's those kids who, when you pull back those layers, it's the kids that's having problems at home.
Right.
So I'm gonna give you a case in point, and I hate to say it like this, but I have a cousin. I always use him as an example. I didn't even know my cousin's real name until I was 17 years old because everybody called him Boo Boo. Okay, and guess how he acted?
Like Boo Boo.
Yeah. You know what's in the name, right? Remember I said earlier about calling the kid a mathematician, calling them different things. Call them something positive. Like let's go beyond. Like if this is happening at home, what can we offer them at school? So when I was a principal in King George, I actually partnered with the counseling department and we started the YES program for that 10%. And it was called Young Men Excelling in School. So take out the M, but young excelling in school, right? So young men excelling in schools. And we actually every Thursday we wore the boys wore a tie. That 10% who got in trouble all the time. I had a male counselor who happened to be an African American male counselor, Mr. Askew, old school, former military. So it worked out. However, guess what happened? You think just that 10% wanted to wear a tie when it caught on?
Right.
All the young men wanted to wear a tie, and I had all the males in the building wear a tie that day. So even my country men, they, you know, the cowboys, they have a tie on with the cowboy boots. That some I'm thinking of one of my English teachers, but it changed who they were. It changed their mindset, and everybody learned how to put on a tie. We actually started doing workshops, and not only for that 10%, all the other young men who wanted to be a part of that, but again, it's kind of changing the focus. And I see schools and principals and teachers working collectively to put programs like that together. But it needs to be more consistent, right? And sometimes it takes the outside doing it. Like you have fraternities, you know, that will go in. They start chess clubs. I actually partnered with Phi Beta Sigma and Phi Alpha on starting a chess club or doing like how to dress for success. We had the male edition. You know, it's easy for women. We teach etiquette, but men need to know etiquette too. What fork should you use? There's a different salad fork, you know, in the entree fork, the dinner fork.
Not just that. I've had this year alone 6-7 grown men ask me to tie their tie.
Yeah.
You know, not knowing. I learned from my grandfather at a young age.
But if there's no male in their life, how do you do it? So I think to combat something that you're saying, where why are the boys? Because it's usually boys. Now I'm seeing more violence with girls too in schools now with the fights and things like that. But it starts from home, and we can't rectify what's happening in the household. That's why I said it starts at home. Remember earlier I was talking about the foundation is the home, but at the school, it definitely is a tourniquet, and it's like, okay, what can we do? So it's kind of like these wraparound services. And one of those wraparound services is providing programs that extend beyond the school day, right? So we know that
I agree.
They say that, statistics prove that from 3:30 to 6:30, kids who are unsupervised are going to get in trouble. They're more likely to go to jail or something happen, get pregnant, all this other stuff. But if you have them in a structured activity from 3:30 to 6:30, where they start off getting a snack, doing their homework, you know, whether it's at the Boys and Girls Club. I went to Marcy Center. That was mine in Chicago. We went to Marcy Center. You know, you have to have them in a structured environment. But the school can do that too. They can have an extended day where they are providing these STEM skills, teaching them how to work the sound equipment, teaching them how to be videographers, and listening, giving them a platform to learn and to build character and confidence.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach for sure. It's, you know what I liken it to? I liken it to how, say, a hospital needs to care about the access to clean food in their community.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing. It's just like the schools need to be like, okay, if these children are exhibiting certain behavior when they get here, what is the cause of that?
Right.
You know, it's the same kind of thing. But let me ask you, what
can I say something? So it's funny because I used to have kids all the time. Miss So-and-so, she just don't like me. And I said, do you really? Let's think about this for a minute. You think Miss So-and-so got up this morning and said, I can't wait to make so-and-so hate me today? You know, because in the principal's office, that's a whole different thing. The kids angry and things like that. But sometimes kids are angry at the parents. They're angry about their life, the choices. They're angry because they're in a new environment because of foster care. You know, we really have to break this thing down and not blame the schools or the teacher. Now, again, like I said, because I've experienced some of that as well, where I'm gonna throw something at you in a minute.
Okay.
I've experienced where there have been cultures who have experienced and said, okay, you know, I'm gonna be the great white hope. But on the opposite of that, I experienced black on black crime in the community.
Yeah.
You know, in the schools even, you know, where we are harsh on our kids because we expect a certain thing, but you can't meet them where they're already getting that at home. You have to provide them and reach them a different way. And that way is you don't have to love the kid, but you have to show them, hey, I'm going to show you through my actions that you are capable, you deserve to be here, you belong, and we're going to do this through building this project together. You know, maybe we can do open heart surgery on a banana, you know, and we do it. We invite a surgeon in, they teach them how to suture with a banana or orange. And kids are like, oh my gosh, I was a surgeon today. Again, it's changing that mindset. And we can do it. I'm sorry for cutting you off. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
You know, like, so we started off talking about, you know, sort of the resurgence of the technical training in schools and whatnot. So it makes me think about meeting kids at their needs, which is what I'm hearing, you know, like a lot of in what you're saying. And you know, being from inner city, now you're in more of a rural area that's predominantly white. How much weight do you put into that, to where some of the issue being, I think Reza alluded to it as well, and talked about if it's a teacher from Iowa, first time, maybe in an urban environment, like how much is it that we're not meeting them at their needs? Like I said, just like we see the need, maybe finding somebody's gift, you know, within a trade. The same thing with that little black boy that's going to class. And trust me, I have boys. I have one in particular that's on my mind. Raising what I'm talking about. It's like the way that they communicate. And black girls get it too. It's like you get looked at as angry or boisterous, but it's because the teacher doesn't understand and can't communicate at that level. I know there's things like diversity training and whatnot, but
even beyond diversity training, one thing that I did do, I think, was successful as a principal in King George in particular, is we actually would take a bus ride to the community. And for the first time, people would say, oh, this is the laundromat. You know, this is where the Bell's Bondsman is. And people, if you have blinders on and you never needed to use a Bell's Bondsman, oh, I didn't even know we had one in this neighborhood. You know, I didn't know people use a laundromat, or, you know, so you take them to the areas that the students live, and you're intentional as a leader, right? So we need to be intentional as school leaders. We need to be intentional as building level district leaders, school leaders, because let's in making that teacher accountable. What I learned as a principal early on in my career is that we're talking and dealing with 21 and 22-year-olds who just got out of college, right? So for the first time in their life, they're experiencing work overload and trying to be a good teacher based on their curriculum, not based on life experiences. So now they're in a different environment for the first time, which is a life experience for the first, because you're in a bubble in college, you know, especially if you're staying on campus, and that's white, black, or other, you know. And then once you get off, like, because I'm telling you talking about a culture shock. DC, sir, I lost my mind at 21 going to DC. Not gonna say what I was doing, but it took me about 2 years to get back on track. Let's just say that. Like, I was like, what? I was away from home, from Chicago, and that was my black experience in Chocolate City. Can you imagine? Yeah. Now, what I will say is, what DC public schools taught me as a teacher is that I was working with very important people. So I had to dress properly. And that prepared me later on. It planted a seed, because when I moved to Virginia, they were a little bit more lax on how you're supposed to dress as a professional teacher. And so where I had to dress up every day, I mean, literally at 21 years old, I walked into my classroom in DC, and my principal stopped me at the door because I had on a jogging suit. This is a true story. And she said, where are you going today? And I thought it was a trick question. I was like, I'm going to my classroom.
Yeah. She must have been black.
Yeah, they called her Big Bird.
Yeah.
Very white. Woo, she was something else. I mean,
Yeah.
she went all the way and became assistant superintendent in Washington, D.C. school. But she was rough. Jefferson Junior High School, first place I worked. And she stopped me out. Can you imagine at your job, somebody's like, where you going with that on today? Right? And I was
that
like,
accountability though.
Not only accountability, but I was 21. I'm so happy it happened to me. People go, oh, that's harsh, right? But I'm so happy I had that in my background because she was telling me, like, you need to be prideful in yourself. I didn't look bad. I thought I looked cute that day. You had the matching tennis shoes on and everything. But it taught me a valuable lesson. Like, you're a professional. You don't dress like that.
Right.
You know, and we miss that.
Yeah.
We miss
exactly.
that.
Exactly. Ain't that what we're missing?
Yeah.
It's like you can't tell nobody nothing.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You can't. Now, and I don't want to get into it with y'all, but you know, when we talk about woke, some of these people who are woke need to go back to sleep because they're non-readers.
Lord,
they don't do their wraparound services. They don't do their triangulation. Let's talk about research and stuff like that. Before you speak something and stand behind it, make sure you're not getting it from Facebook. I'm just gonna say that. I'm shut up. Let's get back to wine talking and you know how to hold a glass properly.
All right,
I love it.
Notes.
Yeah.
I love it.
She showed me how to circle it around.
That's right.
Swirl,
like aroma. Yeah.
And Razor, I don't know if you watched it, and this is a topic for another day anyway. But the Chris Rock's last special. Called Selective Outrage. I personally like it. A lot of people don't, and I think it's because of that. He steps on a lot of toes.
And he should,
about how
we don't want to hear stuff like that anymore.
Like how you so outraged about one thing and so high and mighty and pious. But then on the flip side, it's like this thing is just as important, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If what they say, if truth hurts.
Yeah, all the time.
But
I like how you approached everything though. You know what I'm saying? And that's what, like we were talking about off air, that's pretty much the crust of, in my humble opinion, and the Black community, the way that we talk. We don't come on here and talk about one monolithic issue, and then that's all that we are. This is how we talk. At the dinner table, at the picnic, at whatever. We might cover 45 different subjects.
Absolutely.
In order to feel fulfilled. You know, so I thank you that you were able to do that. Like you were answering our questions, but you also let us know, you know, this is what made me me. This is what I saw. This was my experiences. And this is how somebody else might be dealing with this. So I appreciate that.
Because your perception is definitely your reality, and you grew up in a different dynamic than I did, right? So my perception, like, where I laugh sometimes with the whole Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Because every morning in Chicago public schools, when I was growing up, you had to do My Country 'Tis of Thee, Sweet Land of Liberty. You know, then you had to do we had to do 3 or 4 things before we even started class. And the Black National Anthem was one of that. One of those things that we had to sing every morning.
But see, one thing that you got being in Chicago that we didn't exactly get from where Charles and I are from is the ability to proudly be Black. You know, the forefathers have institutions all around here, right? And I hate to keep bringing up certain things, but 2017, people felt comfortable coming here doing what they did, right? It's because right down the street, the nation pretty much established. Now, granted, people said it came in through New York, people said it came in through Florida, all these other things. I understand all that, right? But the forefathers were right around here. There is a spirit, in my personal opinion, that is still alive and well in this area. And when you reach outside of what that spirit can control, then you become the problem. And you will become the problem for not only those that don't look like you, but for the ones that look like you that think that you're causing trouble. And some of the things that I hear at any given time will make you think you back in the 40s and 50s. Based off of the mindset of the people from here.
Well, I think it's slowly but surely changing. I agree with you. I've seen some of that, I've heard some of that, but at the same time, I think you guys in your platform, you're changing that one person at a time. You know, how do you eat an elephant? How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time, right? So you can't just throw your agenda on people and say, all right, we're going to change today, right? It doesn't work like that. Because if it worked like that, for my years on this earth, when people are talking about the violence that's happening in Chicago, sir, we spent nights on the floor in Chicago. Like, I grew up during New Jack City. You know what I'm saying? So for everybody else, it's now like national news, but it's like that was me. Like, I'm one of those shell shocked. There's a book, Shell Shocked Children from Chicago, because I went to school at the University of Illinois in Urbana. That was my bachelor's program, right? And the bombs went off for the first time when they scored a touchdown, and my dorm room was right there. I got on the ground because you know what I thought it was? Gunshots. Gunshots. I grew up in inner city Chicago. So my perception is also my reality, you know? So when I think, when we're complaining about white on black crime, we need to be complaining about black on black crime, because that's what I grew up with, you know? So I think we need to place equal emphasis on it. Like, why is still like gangs are still prevalent, you know? And why do we glorify them? Like, if you go into that community, like, I'm not gonna shout out anything right now, but it's still like, it's a thing. It is a thing, you know. You talked about Chris Rock. In one of his shows, I don't know if it was this one or 2018, he talks about how he doesn't want his kids to go. He grew up in New York. He doesn't want his kids to go to the inner city because he don't want them to experience that.
Same special.
I get it. I really do, because it's hardcore. Sir, again, I told you I've been robbed. Let me tell you this story real quick. The boy who robbed me when I was 12 years old tried to holler at me when I was 17. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
That ain't no Orange County stuff. That's Chicago. I'm just gonna put
that
out there. That's deep.
You talking about you ain't lying? Huh? We ain't going down there, but like you experience that anywhere, you know? Yeah. Sounds like
But let me ask you
like
this though.
Predatory stuff.
Even though what you're saying, I agree with, up until the point of family has different looks to it. Now, I don't promote gang violence by no means, right? But when you don't have a family in your own household of the blood that you have, right? And the family that is calling you is the streets, because they always got open arms. That's all these kids are really searching for, is a sense of being accepted and finding family. Now, if that family is behind potatoes and catfish and loving stories around the fire with grandma knitting, or it's around 9mm, 45s, pit bulls, drugs, that's still their version of family.
So I think that's where the village becomes, when we talk about the extended community, you know, that's where you all come in, like, and that's where I come in. Like, so you go back and you reach in, you work with the schools, you work with that local after school program, and you try to reach those kids before they're gone. And the critical age is between 10 and 12 to me. I still think you can reach them. Now, let's say they've already been exposed to that 9mm, that AR-15 or something like that. Well, you know what? My baby has been in the archery program. Like, let's use it for good. Let's get them on the Junior Olympics team if they're that good. You know, we just have to restructure and rethink how we approach these children before we lose them. We really do. And it does, again, it goes to those wraparound services, providing those things in our community. And I know I was fortunate enough to have those programs growing up, you know, and we are one program away from saving our children, you know, and letting them know, I used to, on Saturdays, they have the SAT and ACT that they administer. Remember that when you all took that early on? I would actually administer those tests. Okay. So kids would come in and they just like look like the end of the world. And before we started, I'd be like, okay, close your book and stand up. So they close their books, they stand up. And I'm like, look, if you fail this test today, it does not mean that you failed in life. Breathe.
That's good.
You should hear the room. Like when that happened, you know, because they think it's like
so much pressure's been
put on. So just that one test, they think it's gonna be a game changer. And it's not. It's not, you know, so we place too much emphasis on certain things that we shouldn't.
So that being said, you being an educator, why are we waiting? So why are the programs that are getting money waiting until the children get past the age that I think we need to be talking to them? I understand we want kids to be kids, right? But when it comes to like gun violence, I don't think people understand that little plastic pop gun is a real gun to that kid. You know, like they've already established that this is my protection. It looks cute. You know, when little Johnny running around pop acting like this, but when he gets old enough to get a real gun in his hand, He knows how to operate that gun because these plastic guns look so much like real guns.
Sir, it's not even a plastic gun. It's the video games. We'll talk about
Absolutely.
They're being trained like
They're
military.
desensitized.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm going to say to you is, I definitely think it should be taught early on,
Yeah, me
like
too.
like in preschool. But I also think that starts at home. Like, are you buying
Yeah.
that pop gun for your child? I mean, it's still on grocery store shelves. You know, you can go and buy a pop gun. Like, oh, Johnny gonna like this, and he plays
Nerf.
and
The little Nerf
whatever,
guns and stuff like that.
whatever the case may be. But is that dad there? Is that mom there
Exactly.
teaching them and saying, "Hey,
That's
mom,
what it
you know,
is.
it does. It
I
goes
agree.
back to
I agree.
family. It really
That's
does.
what it boils
The
down
crux
to.
of it is like it's your values instilled in your children. And remember, I said earlier, being present.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. That's what
You
it boils
know,
down to.
now
And
being
you know,
present
you're
is
honest.
not like this. You can't be on your phone
Mhm.
and say, "Well, I'm still in the same room with my kid." Are you really?
Right. Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You
'Cause
know,
there has
so-
to be a connection.
Stepped on a lot of toes. That's
Yeah.
But yeah, it has to be a
Yeah.
connection, and it's like we're also talking about knowing your audience too, because there are kids that are different. Like you know your child.
That's right.
Like what they can handle and can't handle.
That's
but
right.
At the end of the day, like they're still connected to the parenting piece.
That's true.
Because
That's
I mean, you know, because it's like you can't block them from everything, right?
No.
But it's a matter of instilling them what the values are.
Yeah. And you know, case in point, on the bus. Do you put your child on the bus and let them hear everything and then come back to you, or have you established a foundation where they can discern right from wrong and make
Exactly.
their own
Yeah.
opinion
Exactly.
as to how they're going to go? Like, just think about your own, how you were raised and things
Yeah.
like that. Like, some things you just had to do on your own.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say this, but my parents led me a very sheltered life,
Okay.
right? And my cousins are the one that showed me everything.
Okay.
My oldest son, I showed him what everything was.
Right.
When he got to that point that I saw the inquisitiveness,
Right.
I showed him what tobacco was. I
Right.
showed him what a crackhead was.
Right.
I showed him what drugs were. I showed it all. Like, this is what this looks like. This is what this smells like. To this day, my son has never had an issue with
Yeah.
any of those things.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, but
people
you
thought I
didn't
was
lie.
wrong. People,
No.
like, my whole family thought I was like, man, you can't do this. But family, I love you. All my little cousins been in trouble.
Yeah.
Just like we had. My son, no trouble, because he understood also, I don't have to do this because my dad already went through it.
Right.
I don't have to be tough. Daddy already went through
Right.
it. And he would tell his friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
cool.
we can't hide everything, but you know what? The whole parenting issue is very complicated. There's no book of right or wrong,
Mm-mm.
you know. So
And each kid is different.
shout out to all parents, you know, who's
Yes,
trying.
indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, who's legitimately trying, you know. So I just say that.
Yeah, he's trying.
Yeah, legitimately trying, y'all.
Legitimately trying.
Legitimately
That's-
trying.
Yeah, you gotta be an intentional parent.
Yeah, throw that
So,
qualifier.
hey, some of y'all put your hand down. Put your hand down.
Yeah. So, you know, we are up against the hour, so we're going to take a quick break and be right back on the flip side. Man, hope you're enjoying the conversation. It looks like it because y'all are definitely watching and listening right now. You popular.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad.
You done came in
Don't
and took
forget
over.
Sweet Vines Farm Winery, guys. Instagram, Sweet Vines VA.
Yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
That's right. So, yeah, so it's Sir Charles Razor, Seidah, and we're going to be right back with more good talk. IMHO Talk Show.
Celebrating 50 years of hip hop. Right here.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
50% more likely to die from it. Men and women of any age are at risk. It is preventable and treatable when caught early. So recent guidelines routine screening started at age 45. Know your family history. Talk to your doctor. There are affordable and simple screening options available to you. The best test is the one that gets done.
Hold on, wait.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
Yes. I am HO Talk Show. Tell a friend that they still got about an hour with us, Razor, on this Sunday. Still,
Yeah, they want more though.
Yeah, the flakes kind of precipitation is kind of melting a little bit, turning to rain. Again, shouts out to the March babies. Bringing it to you. Got that main line to God and Mother Nature. That main line. Yeah, so. Man, we are still here with Seidah Armstrong, and I'm so happy that you chose to spend your Sunday afternoon with us.
Yes.
I'm glad that people can learn about your great business prowess, your great intellect, your spirit and your energy is just awesome.
And learn about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. On this Women's Month, by the way,
Yep.
So let's see, man. So many ways we could, we still could take this thing. So much to talk about, but one of the things y'all mentioned during the last hour, though, which is so important, is because Seidah mentioned growing up in Chicago and having shell shock, which is like a PTSD, really, like that's trauma, and unfortunately, just like they say, the poor will always be among you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's so many negatives, and when it comes to violence and crime, it seems like it's just ever present.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's spikes and whatnot in different communities, as to when it happens. But what contributes to it, and what is the fix?
Mm-hmm.
That's also because as long as it's going on, you're always going to have these talks. And as we mentioned, there's mentors. Sometimes you're able to elect good quality public officials, that may have good at heart. The church doesn't seem to be as strong as it used to be, but that institution is, still a cornerstone of our community. And there's some great ones out there, props to all the pastors and the ministries out here doing great work. Like I even hear folks say when it comes to like taxes and money going towards programs and things like that. Some folks on the more conservative side will say, just give me my money and then I'll donate. But it's actually been statistically proven that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That when you don't have social services being funded, those programs don't last,
right,
because people really don't donate to that level.
Yeah.
We should, and I'd be all for keeping my money in my pocket too. I would, if the majority of us had that mindset, I'm saying I'm actually gonna contribute. Yeah. So we have this plethora of possible solutions and whatnot. But the one I wanted to mention before I kicked it over to y'all is a conversation like that I was having with someone, elder, a pastor, was saying, quite simply, God is missing. Like they're saying, it's like, and this is not someone who is like some like neo evangelical that's like talking about because because all these people are allowed to do this and do that and identify and all that kind of stuff. It was no conversation about being like high and holy.
Yeah. It
was simply in the house. Are you teaching God? Like, are you teaching spirituality? Are you teaching love for your neighbor? It's that simple. That's simple. And it made me think, Race, because you know me, like I try to be involved. I try to do good things.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it feels like, that it's for naught, but it's like that really hit me because I'm somebody who grew up when, like I said, even if I was hanging out late on a Saturday morning,
going to church.
If I was in my parents' house, you going to church. Okay, how tired can you hung over?
Yeah.
Heard you throwing up in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Didn't even come in there and say, boy, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna say, no, I'm gonna show you in the morning when I get your butt out of the bed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Real talk. So, but that hit, because I'm like, out of all these great politicians and Seidah, we have the first, black this and that with our council and all that. We got Charlottesville has more per capita nonprofits than I think they said like maybe any city.
Yeah.
Like per capita, how many nonprofits we have. So all these resources, and it's still not fixing the solution. Like, so is it God that we're missing?
So I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
a lot of times with not all nonprofits, but greed is sometimes in the center of that.
Yeah.
You know, so when they say, oh, we're making some money, so it's usually, oh, we're going to give 80% of this funding to the kids. And then when that money starts coming in, all right, we're going to give 20%. And you're talking to somebody who used to be, I saw numbers clear as day.
Yeah.
You know, so when you talk about black and white in terms of numbers, follow the money. So the intent, the origin of the business or the nonprofit might be ethical when it starts. And not saying it's not ethical now, it's just they change what they're willing to do, and that's going to water down that program for those children. But what you said earlier is like, I had the same type of upbringing, like no matter what, you're going to church. My brother and I got a big butt whooping one day with a broom's handle. Like that's how we raised. Like got hit with the broom.
Oh, you can't do that no more.
No, you can't do that no more. I wish I would even say I'm gonna call somebody. Okay.
He said Lord.
Right.
But I had to pick my own switch. Grandma said you go to
That's
that
right. But you went to church, right?
Yeah.
I went. My hand was swollen, and I dare not say to the pastor, my hand swollen because I got beat with the broom, so I come to church.
Yeah.
You know. But it goes, you see, you prove my point again. That's back at home. The teacher had nothing to do with that. The pastor had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Those were the values established at home. So the question is like, how do we lose our values?
Right.
How do we lose our moral compass?
Yeah.
You know, how do we get that back? Right.
Yeah.
But one thing I don't want to lose is whether I do think it's all centered around spirituality and God. But we're just as an African-American community, we're just now opening up to mental health. Right?
Yeah.
Like
acceptance.
We're just opening up to the acceptance
Yes.
that mental health matters. Like we have to talk about it. We see people, oh, you know, that's JoJo. JoJo been like that.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
how he is. Yeah.
That's how he is. You know, we're finally opening up. Like, you know what? I think maybe JoJo needs some. Like, maybe JoJo needs some counseling.
Yeah.
Maybe something going on. We need a diagnosis for JoJo. You know, and we never did. We never did that for. And like I just know like the kids that I hung around growing up. And like you're like, oh, that's what that was. You know, like you can put a label on it now.
Yeah.
But like it wasn't like that back then. You know, and so we are now just opening up and saying now, you know what? And there are signs. Like I had a kid who I almost said his name. God, thank you. I had a kid who almost bit me. I was an assistant principal in Westmoreland. He was 6 years old. He turned over every desk, every chair in the classroom, and the teacher left him in and took the rest of the class out. The class was mortified. The teacher was mortified. And I went in, and all of a sudden, like I grabbed, you know, his hand. I said, "Boy, give me that chair." And I said, "You trying to hurt yourself?" And he was like, "No, you know." And he's just angry. And so when I went and grabbed his hand, he put his mouth over my hand, and I felt the wetness. And I looked at him like I was his mama that day.
Yeah,
I said,
wish you.
And that's what I did too. I said it. I ain't gonna say what I said.
Yeah, I wish you.
But
he's about to grab the broom.
I said, I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you bite me, I'm gonna bite you back today.
Yeah.
And do you know he bust out, started laughing?
Yeah.
He just couldn't believe it because he knew he had the control of that classroom.
Yeah.
He knew he had put the fear in people. He was 6 years old. It wasn't about the teacher. That wasn't about his classmates. He was angry because of his home situation. You know, so right away we had to, guys, I can tell you story after story. I had a girl child smear poop on the wall one day. And I had to learn that was a sign of sexual abuse. I never knew that.
Yeah.
But you learn real quick when these kids are expressing themselves that something else is happening.
Yeah.
And we talk about earlier pulling back the layers.
Yeah.
So we have to really get to a point of pulling back the layers and being accountable for ourselves at home. Like, is this a healthy relationship? I'm staying with my husband. I'm getting my butt beat every day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm staying for my kids.
Yeah.
And then when your kids grow up, be like, I was waiting for you to leave. Like, you should have left them a long time ago.
Yeah.
And not that has to happen.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there's counseling. And God forbid that's happening in any household, right? But we can't continue to say, oh, it's the school fault or, you know, it's society's fault when we're not looking at our own
That's fine.
We're not looking in the mirror.
I think that, and you know, this isn't a popular thing, but it's starting to grow. What I'm about to say is that in our community, Black women have been the most attacked, right? In as a whole, from their men to society to the way white women treated them, because their counterparts might have been looking at them because of the way they were shaped and looked and the attributes that they had, right? But at the same time, we don't talk about the toxicity of our sisters openly. Like, there are a lot of horrible moms that nag and fuss, and the sisters, I know y'all don't want to hear this, but a lot of times I can look at a Black boy who's dated outside or married outside of his race and ask them, what is your relationship with your mom? And it's not good. Like, the relationship he had with his mom, or what he thought he saw from the females in his family, drove him away from that. Now, you can blame it.
You didn't say a lot of time, not all the time.
Not all the time. No, a lot of times though. A lot of times, because I couldn't understand it, because to me, our women were some of the most beautiful creatures, so to speak, in the world. But I had to ask. Like, it took me years to get to the point. It was like, man, why do you only date touch sex? Why do you seem to do this? You know, you don't know nothing about no credit. You don't know, I mean, the jokes that we make. But it was because it was a broken family and the way that mom relayed over to the dad, and for a son, was extremely toxic. He loves his mom, and sometimes he had to side with the mom against the dad just so he could try to find the love from the mom. But we don't, you know, we all know those old bitter grandmas that, you know, was mean as a snake. But we don't talk. We're not allowed to talk about that without it being looked at as like, y'all don't support us. Y'all don't, you know, I got a sister right now, like that. We go through it on Facebook sometimes about how we go through it. Not, you know, not my blood sister, but we're both right. We're both absolutely right. And I don't know where we find that medium so that the older versions of us can get along, so we can help the younger versions of us before they become the older versions.
So Seidah, like
that was deep.
Yeah, like so pin that, right? Pin that thought, because this is where Razor and I
we differ. Yeah.
We disagree quite a bit.
Because I'm gonna say this to you real quick. I'm pinning that thought, but I'm gonna say this. In some points of what you were saying, I couldn't even relate. Not at all. You know, maybe because of me being a woman, one. Two, from the standpoint of what I did as a career. See, I see kids that have migrated where since the schools are no longer segregated, some of these kids are going together. I just think they just grew up from kindergarten on and they just like each other. You know, it's like everybody thrown in there together. So it's not like, so now
have you ever asked them though?
Johnny goes, you know, I have. I'm like,
I asked.
But you can ask. Can you see a principal? Why you dating that Black boy?
Let me be the principal.
Thank God you know.
That's why you're not principal. That is not your business, sir. Not your business at all.
Like, so here's the thing. It's like
you're making this a different show now. Let's get back to these lines.
I'll make a drink. I'll make a drink.
So following up on his point, right, makes me think of something that you said earlier about yourself and how you're successful. You're independent by a lot of counts, but you still revere your husband. You still see, when it comes to relationships, there's times where you have to be submissive.
Right.
So this is the point that I feel like is the gap between Razor and I's sort of perspective on the comments that he just made, because I always circle back to the man. Like, I feel like, like as the man, it's like we made the women bitter. I know, and just like he made the women upset. I'm sure I'm making a lot of men upset by saying that. But it's like that, because I personally believe, and I know like a lot of the new age crew is not gonna like this, but I believe inherently a female, a woman, is designed, and no matter how brilliant, successful she is, at her core, she wants to be nurtured.
I believe that.
She wants to be taken care of at her core.
Yeah.
So I feel like that when we fail to recognize that as men, and fail to take care of that, then then you are pretty much spawning like a bunch of what people call angry Black women.
Mm-hmm. So, not to get into the psychological part of this, but that man, if he's not nurtured as a child himself,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Because some people
we
are
don't
born
have
in
discernment.
Yeah,
I mean, discipleship when it comes to teaching men how to be men.
Right, or women. Like you have.
Y'all can't cook like you used to. Or
don't do that. Don't do that.
Clean your house or
Don't
like that. Like you
do
used
that. Don't do that. But from the crux and the core of what you're saying, like the woman coming from Adam, right? Like from his ribs, and wanting to be nurtured, and one to know somebody. That's true. There's value in that, no doubt about it. And that doesn't. There's no race on that. There's no race on that. That's just organic, right?
Yeah.
With that said, I think that again, it has to be a visual. Remember earlier I said like I was looking for what type of husband and wife, like what kind of man I was looking for. If you don't have that structure, if you don't have that in a family somewhere, where do you get it? We were fortunate enough, I think the late 80s, early 90s television shows, it promoted family big time. Big time, and not that TV was like how you should be raised or anything like that, but I did see my fair share. But what I'm saying is like, what do we see now? What is that structure or model? Because I see kids on social media all the time. We have bickering and arguing on these reality shows. I think you talk about toxic.
Yeah, it's the norm.
So when you say like, how is a woman supposed to act versus how a man is supposed to act, and you see that in order for me to be rich, I'm supposed to have a certain attitude and act a certain way and curse a person out. That's not real life. That's not reality. Although we're calling it reality.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That gets people paid on television. Yeah. And some of it might be real, but we're teaching a whole new breed of children that this is okay, this is acceptable, and this is our new standard of living. This is how we're supposed to treat each other.
Who set the standard? Because women.
Can I say something to you?
Okay.
The parent who allows that on in their household.
Okay. Well.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I got you. But
I'm gonna always go back to that.
Right. But who sets I guess this is the way I'm asking it. When it comes to what is, because of the way social media presents itself now, women, I'm glad, have a voice to say what they like and what they don't like. Right. But the unfortunate part that I see is that too many people say, okay, this is what I want, but they don't match that. Women can require, say, I need a man to be 6 figures, be this, be that, be that. And all they really have to offer is what God gave them.
The man or the woman?
The woman. Okay. Like there are a group of women that are highlighted in social media that they say, okay, this is what I'm looking for out of a man. For a man to date me, he got to do X, Y, Z, right? But then when you ask them, like, where are you at in your life? It doesn't match up to what they're requiring of the man. The protection that they're looking for from the man is more tangible than it is relationship based, right? Based off of how you dress, what you have financially, how you could take me, the things that I want to do to spend money. And then you say, okay, what can you do? I can make some spaghetti. You know what I'm saying?
He's summoning his inner Kevin Samuels.
So, right. It's true. I mean, and that's part of the problem. So now you got young men going after a goal that if I can get this car, then I can get the woman. Doesn't mean that they know how to pay for the car. Doesn't know that they know how to change a tire. They don't know anything about this car. They can't, when they call in, try to set up a doctor's appointment. They don't know that DOB means date of birth. Like, I mean, so it's honest God truth. You got guys that, because I was a barber for so long, they would come in there and they would talk to me about, like, what is this? What does this mean? I remember this one dude. He gonna kill me when I say this. But he met this girl. They married. They love each other. They got a great relationship right now. He was like, man, she told me something. I got to have a 41K. What is a 41K? I said, Lord Jesus, man, come back after I shut the barber shop, man. I don't want to have this conversation in front of everybody, right? But he was chasing.
But maybe you should have.
No,
I'm sure some others.
Right, yeah, 401K, right? Your retirement plan. But that's what he called it. He had never even heard of that, right?
Yeah.
So you got guys trying to be the image of something that women is telling them is required in order for me to have this level of woman. So it's almost like winning the lottery with no financial literacy. You bound to lose them because you did, when the car starts breaking down and you can't afford it, and you tell her, look, I can't buy you 6 Chanel bags this month. We got to go down to no Chanel bags. She'd be like, nah, not the way I look. I ain't got to put up with this. So I mean, those are the things that I'm saying that we don't talk about our young women, that they, in my humble opinion, they're creating the narrative that is toxic for our community. And we're not allowed to call it out because then we're abusive to women.
Like, so we can call it out, but there's plenty.
No, I mean call it out.
So listen though, but there's plenty of blame to go around, and like what I fear,
and I feel like we watering it down when we say stuff like that.
Right, but I don't because the problem with that Razor is that we get in this spin cycle of finger pointing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like instead of us just being like, instead of us just being like, okay, yeah, we know that society like pit us against each other. Okay. Literally, you know what I mean?
And then what?
And so now you have like generational stigmas
right.
that have been passed down. But once we come to the knowledge, right, of what needs to be done, then it's just a matter of fixing it. Because like the woman always can point a finger at you about like how the man's on your back, and then you bring that stress home, and then you gonna point at her about how she disrespect you.
But we know that, so we have the knowledge. But we already have the knowledge. Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing that I don't see. I hate to say this. I don't see how we're going to fix this. Like, honestly, goodness.
That's why we're here talking about.
Yeah, I do not see how we honestly fix this, because once we get to a certain point, we pull ourselves away from the negative. Like you said earlier, we surround ourselves about like-minded people that's doing what we're doing. Yeah. So that means that we separate ourselves from the ones that need the help. Well, I don't see how we fix this.
Well, I think you have to help yourself first, right? You get out of that environment, right? So you can help yourself, build yourself up, because you're right. There's positive and negative withdrawals from your spiritual bank account and emotional bank account. So you have to feed your own self first. That's where that mindset comes from. And you are building yourself up. Can you help everybody? No, right? But what you can do is you can reach back. So now you take that new group that you're working with, and maybe you have like-minded, in certain areas. So like my sorority, for example, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, we're built on helping our community, like service to all mankind. That's part of
I think y'all were the first.
Yeah, first and finest.
Yeah, y'all were first. Why not?
But we got a lot of Delta listeners.
Yeah, we do.
And shout out to my sisters in the 9. How about
we
that?
do.
But what I will say, because they're all built on community service as well. Yeah. Okay, we all are. So it's not that we don't continue to be intentional about self-love, self-help, but we do have our initiatives where we reach back out to the community and say, hey, we have these services to add. Because I heard what you said, and it is men and women. And you said something like, I can't get you these 5 or 6 Chanel bags. And I see men who are just as asset oriented, right? And I told you what my grandmother said: if it's on your ass, it's not an asset. Let's talk about. So I think we changed the conversation here, and how we change things is change what we're going after. How about, boo? You know what I want? Can you buy me 100 acres? Yeah. Like let's talk about generational wealth. Let's talk about generational poverty, and how do we get out of that? How do we change that mindset? Because who's benefited from you purchasing 5 Chanel bags? Yeah. When you still broke at the end of the day, and you can't even buy a bologna sandwich.
But I think that's the problem. I think that we're so comfortable with being broke as long as we don't look broke.
I don't disagree with that. But I'm saying that the platform and what people hear and what kids hear and what we need to, and it's even from the top, like people make their money through their songs, through their raps, based on, look at how I look, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. They don't say, look, I bought 500 acres yesterday. Some of these performers, they don't talk about the land like they should. They just talk about what's in it. They talk about the names and stuff like that. They make the names more rich. Yeah. How do we make ourselves rich? How do we create our own brand?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
There's a movie coming out pretty soon that I can't really wait to see. And it's talking about the Michael Jordan, and the whole Nike situation. And it is so true, because prior to Michael Jordan, the Nikes, Nikes. It was like Nikes or Reeboks. Like in Chicago, it was like you gonna wear your. We had BK ones.
Yep.
Y'all know y'all remember?
British
we had
Knights.
Lottos, British Knights.
Lotto.
You know, so
Eclipse.
it was so many other shoes to compete with. Like Nike was just one of a, you know, in abundance.
Yeah.
But Michael Jordan kind of catapulted them to the next level and made it a brand and made himself, you know, a multimillionaire in the process as well.
Yeah.
But how do we rebrand ourselves by, instead of taking Louis Vuitton, taking that money, and don't get me wrong, I love a nice product too. But at the same time, why can't we create our own product line?
Because we don't think we got value like that in ourselves.
Some of us do.
I'm talking about as a whole. Like I'm not saying monolithical, like none of us do. But as a whole, I think that part of the reason we have so much violence and it's so abrupt is because you don't have value in the person that looks like you. So it's nothing for you to take their lives because you hate yourself.
And that's the focus too, Ray. Like I think between what Seidah said and what you're saying, it's like what are we going to focus on? Is what I think it boils down to, because there's always going to be, you know, like the negative sides, right? There's also going to be the positive side. So the man that can see the toxic woman coming, instead of him being flabbergasted, you know, like through lust or whatever it is, he needs to be like we're unequally yoked. I ain't, you know what I mean? Like,
which takes us back to the Bible. Takes us back to God.
Right, yeah. And the whole point with that is just that. It's like we have to be examples. Like I'm big on examples, not for like that. Like it'll be a domino effect of like, and don't worry about it if people say that you think you're too good for them or you elitist or whatever the case is. Like build, and then I feel like it'll be a domino effect, you know, on that. But I'm glad Seidah said it. Like that's self-care. That's how we fix it. And, you know, instead of the finger pointing, it's like that, you know, the man in the mirror. It's like, let me focus on me. And if everybody had that mindset, I'm gonna make me better. Like then the problem is fixed. But it's not gonna get fixed as long as we're saying you the problem. No, you the problem. No, you the problem. You know,
it's funny how when you said that, I still saw that as the solution and the problem at the same problem. Because the problem is I am worried about me. I ain't worried about you. So, but you said it a different way. Like self-care goes with me making myself better.
Right.
Right. So our perception, like I don't think that our community has a overarching agreement on what we need to do. The same statement can be contorted so many different ways. Like just what Charles just now said, I agree with it and disagree with it at the same time.
Let me put it to you like this. Think about your worst relationship that you knew you had to grow in when you left. So
you want me to name them?
No.
Oh, okay.
Please don't.
Are you gonna get a social security number? I'll give it all to you.
So, but we're quick to fault that person. But when I came out of that worst relationship for me, I had to like have a self-talk. Why you stay there so long?
Yeah, come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, with self. And that's what I'm talking about. Like we're so afraid of self. We're so afraid to admit the truth, right? We don't want to walk out of because we always want to feel good about ourselves. But the first step in feeling better about yourself is to be honest with yourself.
You can't be scared of that mirror.
You can't be afraid of that mirror. You know, so I can help somebody else, but it's no use for me jumping into my next relationship if I'm still broken.
That's a big problem. People don't know how to be by themselves. You know, you feel like something's wrong. Like I've heard people say stuff like that. Like I can't go to sleep. Oh my God, especially young ladies can't sleep in a house by themselves without somebody. You know what I'm saying? So they bring on the next one, which in turn can lead to you having multiple kid fathers. You know what I'm saying? Because they were a body in a place, but they were no good for where you wanted to go for your future. You know what I'm saying?
So let me flip that on the other side. Isn't it the same way for that man who's constantly in somebody else's bed?
Absolutely. You know, but the problem is God also made men to reproduce. Like there's an internal drive that at a point in your life, it feels unnatural.
Come back
Always. Oh yeah. They ain't tell you about me. That internal drive, man, it's something that's why I'm a big proponent now of having discipleship. Men telling men, look, old fools used to be young fools. Look, you don't have to bust your head on every knot to come through and navigate these waters. We don't have that no more. You know, I can remember that's why barbershops are like so essential. But when you have barbershops that are everybody's welcome, right? women feel comfortable coming in there, that they're going to be protected at this particular barbershop because this one down here, they get disrespected. The conversations aren't as open. You know, like there's things that men want to tell that young boy of the way he's treating his mom that we know, look, we need to intervene now. But you know how she is. She going to feel like she got to protect her baby. So then when they walk out the barbershop, we end up saying, look, man, that wasn't going to be a problem in a couple of years if she don't get it. We know it, right? But we don't want to deal with the mom saying something back to us.
And Razor, the one thing I want to make sure we do too is to make sure that we, you know, acknowledge the success stories as well. Because I think one thing, and the reason that we have this inclusive media project is like the one thing that the media has betrayed our community with is if all you post, if all you talk about are the negatives, then inherently people are going to start thinking like that's us, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like
we think that's us. So I'm the world star.
I figure, but like at some point, right? But at some point, we gotta individually make the choice of I'm not going to the World Star. I'm gonna go to the Griot. You know what I mean, or something that has a positive spin. You know what I'm saying? Just as an example. But to close this conversation, so we can end the show, celebrating our women, and maybe I would love to hear about some who have been the biggest influence on us individually. But for this conversation though, like where do we leave it? Is it all for naught? You know what I mean?
No, I think
are we saying that if you don't have the home structure, then everybody in the community might as well just quit and give up?
Well, there used to be a slogan that says each one teach one or each one reach one. I think, again, going back to the elephant scenario, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So we can be responsible when we reach out. There were seeds planted for us. We're all in a place that we are today and it might not have been your mom or your daddy. It could have been some outside person. You said we're going to give a shout out to those people. My first and foremost, of course, is my grandmother. But I became an AK because there was an AK in the community. She held herself differently. So I knew. And then the next AK that came in my life, like that kind of sealed my fate. I'm going to become an AK.
There you go.
Because I saw the work that these women were doing in the community. They were planting seeds of excellence, and they don't even know how far their seeds germinated. Look at me today, because of these women, that we're talking about Women History Month. But there were men like that in my life too. Like I knew I wanted a man who's going to be a judge one day. Like my husband, not a judge, but I saw that my brother had a mentor who was an attorney when we met him. And now today he's sitting as a judge. Like, where does that happen? But people were planting seeds as mentors by being present in their community. And sometimes you as a barber, you don't even know who you're touching. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if I told you this or not. I own a salon, a hair salon in Fredericksburg. When I was 15 years old, I'm sitting in my girlfriend's mother's salon. I said, why don't your mama ever come here and do hair? And she said, because she just collect the booth rent. You know what I said to myself that day? One day I'm going to collect booth rent. And guess what? Opportunity presented itself. I had some money in my 401k. My 41k. I've had some money in that 401k. I pulled it out to establish that business. And truth be told, I didn't pull it out. I had a savings account. I pulled it out of that. I bought the business. And it's a thriving business. And all I do, I can't do hair. But I can collect that booth with an S.
There you go. There you go.
But somebody planted that seed. So you brothers, people are looking at you. People are constantly looking. This platform that you all have right here is so important because you're getting the message out. You're making people think. Going back full circle to Brittany Alexander. She and two other women, Danny and Alyssa, they started the Tapestry.
Yes. Shout out.
Remember that? Yep. They got the three of them on their backs. They created this that was just an idea, and it manifested into something beautiful, right? So it just takes that, putting that thought to practice. And for those kids, you just never know how that's going to impact them in the future.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Razor, any final comments on where we leave it? Like, do we give up as a community unless it aligns with
We can never give up.
That's
like,
right.
regardless of how hard it is, we got to keep pushing forward, right? My whole thing is to look at things for what they actually are and not the sunny side of it, because in my life, the things that I didn't want to deal with are the things that came back to unhinge the good things I had built, right? So I'm a definite component of, no, we're going to get in the mud first. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get the sunny days later. we're gonna get in the mud first. We got to find out how deep this mud is, right? So that we can tell the other people how to navigate through it. You know, like whatever pain I went through, I'll go back to so I can tell people how to get through theirs. You know, so that's why I am. But as for women's,
well, no, we're gonna come back and close the show.
Oh, I close the time.
Yeah, no, we can take a quick break and close.
You're rushing
real quick.
Yeah, real quick. Uh-oh. She said she got money to
yeah,
make.
she got money to make.
But no, hey, you know, yeah. So stay tuned, y'all. We're gonna take a real quick break, and we're gonna be back to close out the show with none other than Seidah Armstrong of Sweet Vines Farm and Winery, and I want to say, man, like we can't forget God. We can't
absolutely.
Like, we can't leave out our spirituality. I know the world is evolving. We're going, you know, this direction and that
we
direction.
Woke.
Yeah.
We woke now.
But man,
we woke for God.
But man, it's like, just think about it. You know, like we can say, oh, we got to get the mentors, the economic opportunity. But when the money is funny, or when you feel like you can't depend on anybody, somebody lets you down. Like your belief system, your spirituality is all you got.
Yeah, that doesn't take money to do.
Right. And so, like, that's the core. What I think is going to even fix the crime, man. It's what's going to fix the crime is you know, of course, the parenting, then instilling that. Because if we focus on chasing the money, then every thought you make is going to be like, I got to get more money.
Right.
Well, guess what?
And it ain't going to be based and rooted in.
That's right.
And you can't take it with you. I have never heard of people spending money on the other side of death.
Which I die.
You said you've been to Egypt. You think he's a pharaoh?
Okay. Yeah. Remember I talked about mental health earlier?
Yeah, but I ain't made sure y'all. You'll be right back. Stay tuned.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
We're back to close this show. IMHO Talk Show. We've been joined by Seidah Armstrong of Sweet Vines Farm and Winery. And as we said, you know, today is, you know, pretty much the middle of Women's History Month. And like I said, we've been glad to have her with us. And so we just wanted to close the show as well. Once again, someone that, that was a common bond between us three here. Brittany Alexander, rest in heaven to her. Definitely had to pay respects at the top of the show on that. And, to the family and friends as well. As Razor said it so eloquently, couldn't say it better, what a blessing, what a sacrifice, than to be that strong of a mother, to give life, to give birth, and in the midst losing your own. So definitely peace and blessings to the family there. And we got you. But in saying that, just some of the women, I know everybody's been in awe of Seidah today.
Absolutely.
Everybody's like, she just made some wine.
Yeah.
She'll be like, what she talking about.
Yes, indeed.
I don't.
But Razor, I'm gonna kick it over to you too, because speaking of women's history, we're the longest running show on here.
Yay.
on Jams, #1 urban show in the area. I might even say #1 talk show in all the universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
That may be a little much.
Absolutely.
But part of that foundation is a woman.
Yeah. Made the show.
Go ahead and shout that out, Razor.
Made the show as a school project when she graduated from Columbia School of Broadcasting, Miss Maxilia Robinson. Because she decided to take that little Honda up and down the road and had never really traveled outside of her area, is the reason why, in my humble opinion, is at where it's at today. She took the first step so that the rest of us could take off.
That's right.
So I definitely, for women's history, she is literally making history every day, every Sunday that we come in here, because of what she decided to do and the opportunities that God used her as a vessel for us to be here.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
There go your flowers.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, Seidah, I wanted to give you the opportunity too, because when it comes to your grandmothers, and there may even be, someone else is coming to mind, but when you think about your success and being a Black woman, what does that mean to you? Who really sticks out? Who do you envision? Because I know you have the pictures, at your fine establishment as well. So you may blow them a little kiss when you come in the mornings. I don't know, but I wanted to give you this opportunity too to shout out the women.
So, of course, my great-grandmother, but my grandmother raised me, so we call her Lala. Dale Barber, she wasn't like that cookie baking grandma. She was like that cursing sailor grandma that you was like, oh, Lord. But I'm so happy I had her, But when I say this, she was a phenomenal person.
Yeah.
This was a person who went back to college, she went to college at 36, with a double degree, So for me to say that I'm a third generation college graduate, she changed the game for the whole family. You know what I'm saying? So she's definitely the person I revere most in terms of a woman, but there's so many, I shout out to all the women and this is white and Black, because when I say it's 0.0001% for African American female winemakers and just women in the alcohol beverage industry, women overall, even here, they don't thrive. We just had our first woman winemaker of the year last year. And she killing the game. She's not Black, but I think about it. This has been going on for a long time, winemaking, and we just got the first winemaker of the year here in Virginia, female winemaker here in Virginia. So my point is that shout out to all the women in the alcohol and beverage industry, because it's a thankless job, but shout out to all the educators, right? Let's high five all the teachers we've had in our life, which is female dominated. I've had some extraordinary teachers. How many of you can you both think back to from kindergarten on up to 8th grade? No talk, but can you name them all? I can name all of my teachers.
Oh, I can name all my Black ones. I had one, Miss Baker. That was it.
What about you? Can you name yours?
I think I could.
Did they impact you in a positive way, their presence?
Some of them.
Miss Baker used to wear short dresses all the time. So we used to look at
my gosh. You know what?
You asked.
At least he's being honest.
He's being honest.
I mean, like something's got to keep his attention.
Yeah, that was it. Never missed a class.
So with Miss Bradley, for me, it was poetry, right? I learned Invictus in third grade. Like, who learns Invictus in third grade? Miss Porter was like, I'm from the old school. She would like, she was still spanking kids after that was like big. That was illegal.
With the yardstick.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So there's so many women. Even like, so mentors like Alfreda Keller, one of my sorority sisters, Dr. Vera Blake, one of my sorority sisters, you know, so I've had this, you have a village, you don't even know you have a village, right? But also young and upcoming female entrepreneurs, African-American female, my sister-in-laws, they are killing it. My cousin, she's killed it. You know, they all have their own business, and thank God for them for having the courage to step out on their dreams and on their own faith to open and pursue other goals.
To be honest with you, women always have, not to cut Charles off, but our women have always been the catalyst for our growth.
Yeah.
You know, going back from Harriet Tubman to Cleopatra to, you know, women don't get the just due. You know, I know it sounds like I give them a hard time when I talk, but but in actuality, I know that I'm standing where I am because some woman did something.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what about you?
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, like I would definitely want to shout out, you know, you all can go to our Vinegar Hill magazine partner too. There's so many great women that are doing great things, particularly Black women coming off of Black History Month and Women's Month. You know, don't even want to begin going down that whole list, but y'all check them out in that the acknowledgments that, you know, that were given. Right. But, you know, but with me personally, when you talk about teachers, like like there were male influences, whether it was bus drivers or teachers that honestly came to mind first when you said that, just within the educational realm. But I remember Miss Brock. There was Miss Brock. I remember in primary school, she was like the only Black teacher probably in the whole school, and I didn't even have her. But to show you the impact that it has to have representation, how important representation is, the fact that I knew her and there was somebody like that I watched and looked to because she was like me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that representation is very important.
It is.
But of course, you know, like we talk about my mom too, you know, because Razor and I talk a lot about how like we're becoming, you know, the parents now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's like that generation is getting older and things of that sort. But when I think about, you know, her strength and love is definitely, you know, like, you know, of course they say your mother's boy's first love, right? You know, so that, you know, so definitely had to shout out that, and my wife as well doing big things, you know, here with the Equity Center, to where, you know, I'm glad to be able to call her a life partner, somebody that, you know, that we can really impact community together, and you know, and you know, like to be able to say that we're trying to leave the place better than we found.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And legacy. I talk a lot about legacy. I mean, tripping people out when they talk about like what's important or like what keeps your marriage together and whatnot. You know, because to a lot of people it's little things like he makes me coffee in the morning, stuff like that. People will say, but like what I think about is like, you know, having children and you realizing like that it is bigger than you or an individual. We talking about community again, village. We're talking about village again. You know what I mean? So it's like to be able to have like-minded folks, like not negative ones working on World Star Racing, but to have like-minded folks to build with is important. And you're right. Some say that you know that a woman is the closest thing to God. That was what I heard some folks say. You know, Black woman. And it's so it's like that's why I had to give that shout out. That's where I'm at with it. Happy Women's Month.
Yeah. So I'm in a new industry now, you know, being in the farmer market now. So, you know, shout out to Black farmers and Black female farmers who are planting seeds. No, I mean, just going back to the basics and the organics, just the soil and reconnecting. Like for real, when they talk about just planting and growing your own is so important because these people are really doing it, and from farm to table, you know, and you're part of that movement. You know, that farm to table movement. So shout out to women, shout out to female chefs.
Absolutely.
Yes. How about that?
Yes.
I'm so glad you brought that up too, because the last thing I was going to say, I remember you said that earlier and it crossed my mind. It's like we gotta learn to be independent, y'all. And I think since a lot of us talk about, single mothers a lot, seems to be in the crux of a lot of conversations when it comes to our community, regardless of how that came about. One thing that they do teach us is resilience.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like we gonna figure it out, and we gonna get this thing done.
Absolutely.
Right. And so when we talk about people wanting to be activists and talking about revolutions and all this stuff, we got to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
When I say self-sufficient, I'm talking about like as a community, as a people, learning how to grow your own, learning how to sew and stitch. And not that one individual needs to do it all, but we need to get back to the times where we had that village.
The community.
Like that can leverage those resources.
That's what I feel like Unionville is. I feel like that's what we're moving towards in Unionville.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to, and this is going to be like an abnormal shout out, but I want to give a shout out to all the women who were forced to play both roles, right? Because honestly, a lot of what the world sees as strength in the Black community is coming from Black women. You can't mention Obama without mentioning Michelle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it just, I have to give credit where credit is due. There's things that I don't agree with, yes, but when you look at the overarching contributions that our women have done for our community, it can't even be measured. Like they haven't come up with a scale that can measure the things that our Black women have done. So shout out to you.
That means a lot coming from Razor.
Yeah. I think I got some of that wine that Sweet Vine.
Don't forget about Sweet Vines Farm Winery.
That's right,
Follow us on
Armstrong.
Facebook and on Instagram.
Yes, Seidah Armstrong. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a great show.
Thank you all for having me. I'm welcome. Look, I'll come back next year. I'll come back. Just let me know. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate you. And appreciate you all, family. Thanks for chiming in. Thanks
See y'all
for watching
Go-Go.
and listening. That's right. See you at Sweet Vine.
Great show.
Thank you, guys.